right, peace, people. A couple minutes late, my bad. I'll wait till we get some people in the room, and we'll go ahead and begin. All right, so we'll give it a minute or two, and then we will go ahead and get started. I hope everybody had a happy New Year and all that good shit. I hope everybody was safe. So, it could be a little wild out there on New Year's Eve. All right, so we'll give it a minute or two. See people coming in slowly but surely. And then we will go ahead and start. So again, peace and greetings to everybody. Hope everybody had a safe New Year last night. If you went out and partied and did what you did, hope you did it and had a safe time. Pretty much now, holidays winding down. Shit starts to get back to normal. So we will get back to the routine. All right. So we're going to wait a minute. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. I know some people have been asking about this topic for a while. So I figured let's go ahead and go in on it. Let's go ahead and talk about it, and we will discuss it. All right. I'm just going to get a minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and begin. Yeah, I figured I'd come on a little earlier today since I had the time. Better to do this a little bit earlier than later. All right, while we are waiting, more so for when the video posts in his archive, just to go over a couple quick announcements. You should have gotten, I did send out the flyer for the event on the 25th. If you are on the receiving list, you should have received that earlier today. I did post it also. Look for also announcements on the YouTube. If you go to my YouTube page, they have a community section there. All right. So I want to put this out there it's something that they started not too long ago. I've never utilized it, but I figure I would start utilizing it. If you go to the YouTube page, my YouTube page, or everybody's YouTube page has a section now they got called community, where you can post communications and announcements. I've also put the flyer and the video feed announcements on there too. So I just wanted to tip you off on that. And I thought that would be a good place too, because for those that maybe are not on the list, they will see the flyer on there. So that's why. So again, keep posted in the community section of the YouTube page for different announcements and things of that nature. So that flyer went out, and so we have the date and the ritual. Again, the ritual will be a PEP as the adversary of chaos and darkness. That will be done on Friday, January 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in case you're at a different time zone or you're traveling, et cetera, et cetera. All you got to do is just email the email address on the thing and request an invite. We go from there. There was something else I want to make sure I didn't forget that crossed my mind earlier. Well, maybe it'll come back. Consultations, emails, online classes. You can reach me at the same email in the description box. I have started back up the regular schedule starting tomorrow with the consultation. So I request going back to like I originally do. Just give me 2-day notice at minimum. Now that things are kind of winding down, the holidays and stuff are over. Kind of get back to a regular, normal schedule. So if you, again, it's still a good time early in the year to use a reading or a consultation for like a yearly forecast, things of that nature. Or you can use it for however you want, to consult the ancestors, the spirits. If you want to use it for just a free-for-all consultation, you want to ask questions, you can pretty much dictate how that consultation goes. So feel free. Also, probably looks like the weekend of the 19th of January, I will be in the Tampa area doing some work. Not sure how long I'll be there. I know there's some people that have emailed me, inquired when I'm in the area. it's possible I can catch up with certain individuals. If you can get to me, I'll be in the St. Pete area, actually, exactly to be specific. So if you're interested maybe in catching up with me and doing a reading or a consultation, just shoot me an email. Not sure, it just depends on the schedule. I am going there to do some work, some ritualistic work, but you can hit me up. And that's going to be the weekend of January 19th. I'll be there just for a day. So feel free to hit me up on that. That's what it was that I couldn't remember or slipped my mind. All right. So that's pretty much, what we got going on. We got the ritual at the end of the month. Classes, again, a reminder for those that are taking the online classes. The last 2 sessions begin this Saturday and next Saturday. That will wrap up this session. And then again, I responded to a few of your emails today about the March session. I did send that information out to Lady Shalise and a couple other people. I will start getting that information out when exactly it will start, dates. Just bear with me. That'll be done, I'm going to say the middle of January, middle to the end of January, once the session wraps up. I have pretty much completed the curriculum for that session. Just got to add a few little touches on it, and then we're good to go. All right. So that's pretty much what we got going on for right now for this month. Again, the email to contact me for any of the things I just mentioned, just go into the description box, the email khnum19@gmail.com. It's right in the description box, all the videos. All right. So let's get into tonight's topic. It's going to be a little bit different. I know several of you brothers and one sister had emailed me and have emailed me actually a couple times over the last several months about doing a video on this topic. I just want to make things clear before I start. I want to make sure there's no confusion. First and foremost, as I've mentioned in the past, my history beginning out. This probably goes back to my first introduction, quote unquote, even though I know the 5% Nation, the gods don't consider themselves a conscious community or a pro-Black organization, and I'll explain that why. But this was my first introduction to any type of higher level of learning. I probably, just to give you a detailed history so you understand, I first encountered the 120 lessons of the 5% Nation in my sophomore year in high school, which was 1987, going into 88. A brother by the name of Allah Supreme Mathematics, and this was out on what the Nation of Gods and Earths would call Lord's Island, which is Long Island, New York. I grew up on the border of Queens and Long Island. Technically, it was Long Island. And that's where I first encountered the teachings. That's my first beginning. That's going back to 87, 88. And again, I want to go over this so you can understand the background and where it's at right now and understand why I'm doing this. Stayed in it probably for a little less than a year. And then, as most people know, I got sidetracked for a long period of time with the Dr. York Ansarullah law years ago. So I left and was loyal to that organization for a long period of time, which I'm not going to get into all the details about that. So long story short, my first introduction to this was 87, 88, before I got into other things. So having said that, I also want to make this clear before I get in. This video is being done. I have the utmost respect for the 5% Nation and the Nation of Gods and Earth. So this is not a video to attack or a video to, just, go off on stupid shit. That's not why I'm doing it. I also understand, I want to make this clear, even though I do stay in touch, whether it's brothers that I knew in New York or wherever, I do communicate and still stay in touch with some brothers that are part of the Nation of Gods and Earth, which that's the name that they're known by today, because Father Allah had them drop that title back in, a couple years back. But anyway, the point being is, I want to make this clear. I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion today in 2019 a full-fledged member like I was back in 87. So I want to make that clear. And again, this is not a knock on the 5% Nation or the Nation of Gods and Earths. It is a video now because since a lot of people had emailed about this and have heard me talk about pieces of this over the last couple of years, it is a video to look at it. About a year or so ago, after having not really, studied or looked into the lessons like I used to years back, I always maintained my lessons, always, something you'll never toss to the side again, especially when it's one of your first, being in my case, introduction to any higher level of learning or spirituality. I picked them up again about a year or so ago, but I wanted to see how I would look at them now, quote unquote, being what people would call on the occult path, etc. So I'm doing this video to show you, and I want you guys, and I know some of you brothers that watch the show regularly are ex-5%ers or Nation of Gods and Earths as far as not being full active members anymore. So I want to make that clear. You guys have asked to do a video on this. So I want to make this clear. I want you guys to take the degrees or the 120 lessons and see how you perceive them now. So I noticed something out of the blue just gave me the urge to pick them back up a year or so ago. And I wanted to see how I would look at them, because obviously in 2019, I ain't going to look at them the same I did in 1987. So I want to make that clear. So we're looking at it from occult. That's why the video is titled that. Looking at the occult meanings. Now, there could be multiple meanings to this. Now, if you were ever a member of the NGE, you're supposed to give how you see things as God. All right, so we're going to address that. Now, in the Nation of Gods and Earths, they don't recognize the females. We're going to address that because I know some females always had questions about that. The females aren't referred to as goddesses. All right, they're referred to as earths. The men are referred to as gods. We'll talk a little bit about that. Now, how I look at that from an occult perspective, I don't look at just the physicality of it and the titles. I believe from an occult perspective, you need the masculine and the feminine energy to make up that concept of what God is, because both energies embody that. So I look at the combination of the male and female embodying that. Now, again, I'm going to be giving a perspective from the occult that a lot of mainstream members of the nation would not agree with. But that's, again, we're not doing this video to be in line or accordance with the mainstream. Again, we're doing this of how you would look at this from an occult perspective. All right. So let's go over the basics. First and foremost, what's required of you on that path at first would be to learn your alphabets and your mathematics, your 12 jewels of Islam, before you got into your degrees. This is how I was taught. Now, you'll find everybody else that was given their lessons wasn't taught or given the exact same way. Yeah, I remember back then in the 80s, it's not like today where a lot of people get them all at one shot. They're easily accessible. You can pull these now. I mean, back then it wasn't like that. You couldn't get them on the internet. That stuff didn't exist. You had to have a teacher that took you under their wing, and usually they would feed you sections of the degrees at a time. You wouldn't be able to get, your next section or set of degrees until you actually mastered whatever was given to you at first. And usually student enrollment, the 1 to 10, that was given to you first. Nowadays, and I know this from still staying in touch with certain people, again, now sometimes brothers are given all in one shot. People are pulling them up on the internet. They're on Facebook. You can get them on Scribe. So it's there accessible to be studied and scrutinized, just like anybody can come on this channel. And again, I don't expect everybody to agree with what I teach. That would be ridiculous. Everybody has a right to their own opinion and scrutiny as long as it's done within reason and taste and non-disrespect. Anybody's entitled to that. That's your given right. But we're also entitled to analyze and scrutinize these degrees and these lessons as well in a respectful manner. Because again, remember, one of the things we were taught and is still taught, you're supposed to give your add-on how you see the degrees as God, not just how they're written and rehearsed and recited. So I took that into account when I repicked these back up about a year ago. So when you look at the mathematics, which would be 1 to 0, right? And basic conversation like today, being January the first month, 1 represents knowledge. Today being the first day represents knowledge. All right, so we have knowledge. We're in the year of wisdom, cipher, knowledge born, right? 2019. The mathematics, again, and how I see it, it to me is a language of communication, not just a verbal language, but it's a mental language, It's something that speaks to the subconscious. And again, I'm explaining this how I would perceive it now being on this path. So the basics you would have to know, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, power. These are the 1 to 9. Knowledge, 1, 2, wisdom, 3, understanding, 4, culture or freedom. Now you'll see if you got some of the older degrees, there's some words that were changed. They have been updated, even in the 120. Or if you go into the 120 of the NOI, some of the words are a little bit different the way it's worded. All right. 5 being power refinement, 6 being equality, 7 being God, 8 being build or destroy, 9 being born, 0 being cipher. All right. That's your alphabet. So anytime, depends on how you use, your math. Anytime you communicate or build, you can choose. Obviously, if somebody came and said, what's the math for the day? Obviously, you correlate it to the day. As I said, we're in the month knowledge, and today's knowledge day. And then you would, do the knowledge on it and give your own add-on and build. So I'm gonna go through this quick so we can get to some of the degrees. So that's the way you would communicate the math. You can also correlate it to the alphabet, because when you correlate it to the alphabet, which is the second thing, and these are the first 2 things that's mandatory that you learn before you even get any degrees. So again, this was the way that I was given, and this was the way I was taught. So even when you go through the alphabets, the 1 to 26, they correlate with a number. So A being a law, that would be 1. You just do the math. 2 being be or born, that would be 2. So you'll find some people as they build on a lesson, be it male or female, they incorporate the alphabet and the math. But that's entirely up to you, how you see fit as God or Earth. That's entirely up to you. 3 would be the letter C. Now, there's phonetics and play on the words. 3 would be the letter C. 4 would be divine, which is D. 5 would be E, which is equality. You can do the number. I'm going to skip the numbers. F would be father. G would be God. H would be he or her. I would be I, like the letter I. Some will correlate it to like the physical I. Just depends on how you use it. J is justice. K is king. L is Lord or Savior. M is master. N in some of the older ones is worded a little bit different. Now I was learning to use it as now or N, the letter N, which is the 14th letter. O is cipher, just like the number 9. Again, I'm going to go through these quick. I would suggest you get this on your own time so you can look at it. P being power, Q being queen, R being refinement, S being savior, T being truth or square, U being you or universe, V being victory, W being wisdom, X being unknown, Y being why, like why, asking the question, and Z being zigzag, zig, which actually represents knowledge, wisdom, understanding that can be applied in different lessons. So that in brief is what they would call the mathematics and the alphabet. All right. Now I find it unique, and I find myself still, when I get up every day, using it for myself, just personally, as a way to reflect and tap into something and trigger the thought process, in addition to just communicating it. So that's the basic principle you would have to understand before. And again, I'm going to explain it to you the way I was taught. I can't say it's done exactly like this today because, again, I'm not fully active and a part of it like I was back then for the short period of time. But before I even got the 1 to 10, I had to know that. That was mandatory. My teacher had given me that, and that's what you need to know, and that's it before you can get anything else. All right. So the 12 jewels of Islam. All right. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, freedom, justice, equality, right? That's the first 6. Now, these are all, this is what I'm saying. You don't have to be, quote unquote, a 5%er to understand. These are everyday things that anybody can grasp to. If you're not seeking that, something's wrong with you. And you're going to see it's very likened to this path that we call path to self-mastery, being a god or goddess over your own path, right? Food, clothing, shelter, love, peace, happiness, right? Those are all the 12 jewels of Islam. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, okay? Freedom, justice, equality, food, clothing, shelter, peace, love, and happiness, right? We should all be seeking that on a regular basis. There's nothing off about that, all right? And just for those that may not know, and little history, some of you might know some stuff about, the founder, Father of Allah, also known as Clarence 13X when he was in the Nation of Islam, or Clarence Jarvis Smith, right? Let's be clear, just get basic understanding. I would suggest you do your research, find out more about them. You'll hear, in my opinion, people will have a lot of opinions about it. Some positive, some negative. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Father Allah and what he did. So this is my take on it. I know within the quote unquote conscious Black communities, they don't really fully embrace the nation because they get caught up in a lot of the rhetoric. And I want to make this clear, and I was always taught, and I know they still teach this today, the 5% nation of gods on earth, don't consider themselves, one, a racist organization. That might come off contradictory after we go through some of the lessons, but it's not. They don't consider themselves a pro-Black or a pro-white organization, all right? And they don't even like to be referred to as a conscious, part of the conscious community. And I agree with all that because it leaves you or separates you from all those stigmatas that come along with it. So I want to say that. But Father Allah, who was a member of the Nation of Islam in New York, and broke off because he basically, as he started studying his lessons, he felt that, look, and this is one problem I've always had, and I still talk to a few NOI brothers that I know. This is one of the problems I've always had for a while. The Nation of Islam will teach that the original Black man is God, but yet who is this God that they pray to when they do salat? Who is this God that Farrakhan is doing these opening prayers to? And again, I got respect for Farrakhan for certain things, but there are things with I don't agree because I think nowadays that the Nation of Islam, this is my opinion, I think they become very religious. I've gotten into some intense discussions with brothers down here that I know in the South Florida area. If the original Asiatic Black man is God, who are you praying to? Why are you making salat? And how does that differ from how a Sunni or a traditional Muslim would make salat to some spook spirit god in the sky somewhere? You never really get a clear-cut answer. You get a lot of buck dancing and shucking and jiving. And one of the things, I bring that up because Father Allah basically felt, well, hold on. If that's what the lessons say, then I'm God. I'm Allah. He's Allah. He's Allah. He's Allah. That's just a quick gist of it. Well, that didn't sit too well with members of the nation. So he wound up leaving. And this is what inspired him to start the Nation of Gods on Earth and kind of come up with what he was inspired. Now, in my opinion, going back studying the history of Father Allah, and this is just my opinion, I believe he definitely was tapped into some metaphysical and alchemy, even some occult mysteries. Now, that's just my opinion. I can't validate or prove that. We don't know exactly what the man had access to when he studied, but I definitely know he was a diligent studier, and the way he put this together, because as I said just a couple of minutes ago, the math and the alphabet is a language that one, it can trigger the thought process in the subconscious. And I think it's a mental language more so than just the verbal that is spoken. And I think that is unique because when you speak it and understand it and the messages it sends, and to me is very, would be on this path of self-mastery, the messages it communicates to your mind, I think it's very powerful. And that's just my opinion. All right. So this is what inspired him to set his movement. Now, if you know the history, especially in New York, but let me say this too, the 5% Nation of Gods on Earth also have chapters all over the world. Even though the Mecca and Medina chapters in Brooklyn and Harlem are the groundwork of where it was laid. Now, you will see 5%ers of Japanese Asian descent. You can go on to the 5% Nation YouTube page, and they got a video where some 5% brothers of Japanese descent visited Harlem, and they posted that, which I thought was unique. You have brothers of Middle Eastern descent, along obviously with Latinos, Blacks, and other ethnicities that tie into the brown and the yellow sea. That was one thing that always attracted me. And if you look at some of the old pictures of Father Allah on 125th Street in Harlem, New York, you will see very fair-skinned Latinos that could even be confused for being white because of their looks, and that could be very deceiving. Even today, you'll see on some of the videos the fairest of fair to the darkest of dark, and that was one of the things that always attracted me because it embodied and included a lot of those different ethnicities, where a lot of the other groups at the time really didn't do that. So I want to say that they got chapters worldwide, members worldwide, from all different backgrounds, races, and ethnicities, which I think is a powerful thing. And one thing I will give them credit for, they've stayed true to their foundation, and they're still going strong, which to me, again, is a beautiful thing. And it's a testament to how powerful the information can be. So I also want to dispel the myth, because I know there might be some people, regardless of what your race or ethnicity is, Black, white, Latino, some people are under the illusion that it's a hate organization and a racist organization, and it's not. They are for the betterment and upliftment of the original Black man, but they understand also in that process, anything that goes against true nature, you have Black devils too. You understand? You have those that have that same mindset. And we're going to go through a little bit of that. What I'll probably do, because I won't be able to get through all this, I'm going to try to do half. It's going to be hard to do all this in one sitting. So I'll try to get through portions of it, at least half of it. All right, so the student enrollment, let's start there. And again, I'm going to convey this of how it was given to me. That was the first 10 degrees I got. The student enrollment consists of the first 10 degrees. So I'm going to give you an example. Every degree or line, it compromises a degree. So you literally have 120 degrees. Actually more. I'm going to explain that when we get towards the end part. You also have plus lessons, which I'm not going to really get into too much of that right now. Now, when you are a full-fledged member, which now I don't have every single degree committed to memory. I mean, I can still build on any one of them, or once I'm reminded of what it is, very easy for me to access and build on it. But it is required for you to master 120. You have to know all of your 120 degrees. It's not an option. That's if you are a full-fledged member. It's required. Now they have study groups and training programs where you have mentors and teachers at a law school of mathematics, and there's different law schools around the country outside of Brooklyn and Harlem, where you have people help and assist you with that. They have 120 classes, but it is required if you take the option of becoming a full-fledged member to memorize all of your degrees. So I don't have them all down packed no more. I can't remember every single one of them. I got the gist. But like I said, you can go in the 1 to 10, the 1 to 14, the 1 to 36. As soon as it's triggered, I can build on it and pretty much remember it. Now, there's some stuff in here when we get to the stuff with Yaqub and all that, there's always been debate in many circles. Is this a literal story? Is this factual? We'll get to that, because that's been some of the things that have maybe turned people away from the misunderstanding. And I'll explain. So the first degree, who is the original man? And what we're going to do is scrutinize, is this on point? Is it not? How should you perceive it? All right. The original man is the Asiatic Black man, right? The maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the father of civilization, God of the universe. That's a fact. Regardless of what your race and ethnicity is, we shouldn't even have to have a discussion who the fathers, the originators are on this planet for life form. We know where civilization started. Case closed. I don't even think, regardless, you can have your own interpretation and opinion on it, but when you get to historical facts and data, I don't think anybody will dispute civilization started, whatever you want to call it, the motherland, Nubia, Africa. That's a scientific fact, right? Degree 2, who is the colored man? Now, some of the stuff that might come off racist, I want to clarify, because people sometimes, one thing we were always taught, never take the lessons on face value, never. Okay, because you'll get confused. As I go back and go through them in 2019, to me, there was a lot of more I look at it more metaphorical and symbolic, especially when I get to some of the stories of Yaqub and me and Mecca, because you historically can't find on record anybody named that pertains to this story. That's where some of the differences where I might see different. I mean, you can find a Hebrew character, Yaqub, the story of him being in the backyard with 2 magnets and all. I look at that more symbolic. When we get to those degrees, I'll kind of explain that. I've had discussions with brothers still in the nation. Do you still look at that literal today? And it depends on who you talk to. I don't focus on the literal thing, because you can get into a back and forth fuckery. To me, it's a waste of time and energy. But there is a strong symbolicism how you can apply that to yourself. I'll get to that when I get to it, though. The colored man, this is degree 2. The colored man is the Caucasian or white man, right? Yaqub's grafted devil of the earth, right? Planet Earth. Now, in the old NOI lessons, it says skunk of the earth. That's not used in some of they've made an adjustment to that, but you will find in the NOI degrees it says skunk of the earth. Now, that could sound racist to somebody, especially a white person, right? But the reason why that is in there, because, again, when you look across the places, across what we call this planet Earth, and this is not a racist or a hateful statement. I know there's plenty of white folks that even agree. They have been the ones that have been responsible for a majority of the atrocities, disasters, and wars. Now, that doesn't mean blacks, Latinos, and Asians have not contributed to it. But when you look at the power structure in the country, that's just a sign. That's a factual statement. That speaks for itself. 3, I'll go through some of these quick. What is the total population of the original nation here in the wilderness of North America, or all over the planet Earth? Now, that's degree 3. And the answer that they'll give is 17 million. They'll give 7. Now, remember, here's another instance where I see debates start with people that may not be 5%ers because they get caught up. It's like arguing the Bible. So the number they will give there, right, that the planet is 4,400,000,000, right, all across the earth and in the wilderness. Total population being 17 million plus 2 million. Indians making it a total of 19 million in the wilderness of North America, and I believe it is 4,400,000,000 all across the planet. All right, so this question has always come up. Well, and I want to clarify this because you got to look at it 2 ways. Is that number mathematically sound right now? Obviously not. That's common sense because people are being born and die every second. As we're sitting here right now, conversating, somebody's dying and somebody's being born. I think what squashes that argument to debate I've literally seen people argue over this. I've literally seen Nation of Gods and Earths argue with Christians or maybe people that aren't members over this stupidity. Remember, at the time these lessons were written, it's basing those mathematical numbers roughly at the time the degrees were written. It's that simple. Leave it alone from that point. To just continue on and get into the semantics and the back and forth fuckery, to me, is a complete waste of time. So you have to understand, at the time these degrees were written, that's what that math is based on. Obviously, by being a God or being an earth and having that wisdom, obviously your add-on or your add-on build would be able to apply that common sense. Come on. Enough said on that. Degree 5, what is the total area in square miles of the planet Earth? This has been debated, 196,940,000 square miles. Now, I've heard people debate this. Well, the Earth is constantly contracting and expanding. Again, it's a rough figure. We understand that, all right? We understand, how that's dropped. We understand scientifically the planet expands and contracts, but are we going to sit here and argue? Again, you have to look at this from the perspective, that's what it was at the time these degrees were put into practice. That's simple. I'm not even going to waste my time. Whether you accept that or not, to me, it's irrelevant, but I want to put that out there, right? All right. So degree 6, how much useful land is used every day by the total population of the planet Earth? All right, the total population has 29 million square miles. That's degree 6. Degree 7, how much useful land is used by the original people? The original people used 23 million square miles. That's degree 7. Degree 8, how much useful land is used by colored people? The colored people use 6 million square miles, right? That's degree 8. All right, degree 9, what is the set birth record of the Nation of Islam? The Nation of Islam has no set birth record. It's as old as the sun, moon, and stars. It has no beginning, no end, right? Now, I want to make this clear. And this is one thing I thought was unique that Father Allah did, was he separated the meaning of Islam, which we know in these teachings means I, self, Lord, and Master. Not Islam in the sense of a traditional Sunni, traditional Islamic religion where you're wearing the jalabiyah, the tagiyah every day, or the emma, and you're making 5 to 7 prayers a day. And you look at the Quran religiously like a Christian would. Father Allah separated himself from that mentality. Islam is a way of life, according to the teachings. It's not a religion. Again, I, self, Lord, and Master, right? So when he says it has no birth record, it's as old as the sun, moon, and stars, because when you correlate it to a way of life, as opposed to a religion, here's where another debate and stupidity argument comes in. Well, Islam is only a little bit over 1,400 years old. That's correct. The traditional religion of Islam. And you will see any 5%er today will tell you they're not Muslim gods. That's another thing. Don't equate with being a Muslim that has anything to do with being a god or a earth in the nation of gods and earths. That's made clear distinction, but sometimes there's a confusion because you hear the word Islam, and to the unlearned or the ignorant, they automatically correlate it either with the Nation of Islam or traditional Sunni or Shiite Islam. So when a god says that their way of life is Islam, they're not talking about the traditional religious or Islamic way. Self-explanatory. So the Islam that we're talking about in the lessons has no beginning, has no end. It's older than it's older than the sun, moon, and stars, has no set birth record, no beginning, no end. Right? It's that simple. So if you want to know, and to me, that's very path to self-mastery in nature than anything, right? We say that on this path. We don't got no beginning or no end. We don't correlate our existence to some spook god that resides in the sky somewhere, and neither does Nation of Gods and Earth, right? And then degree 10, what is the said birth record of nations other than Islam? Buddhism, 35,051 years old. Islam, which is not there, as I said, Islam at the time of this writing was roughly 1,400. Well, at the time of today, a little bit over 1,400. So that would comprise your 1 to 10, right? That's your 1 to 10 in the student enrollment. So I'm trying to give you again, this is how it was given to me. So it's your alphabet first. That's how I got it. Your mathematics first, your 1 to 0. Because as we know, when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, it starts all over again. 0 cipher. And then it goes back to 1. We know there's no higher number than 9. And this is why when you become a god of earth, you're always taught to teach in groups of 9. And then 9 teaches 9, and that 9, your job is to get your own cipher of 9. And it all, again, ties into those mathematics. So we see that. And there is a lot of astrology and numerology in this. I'm going to be honest with you. I see that now in 2019. I didn't look at it like that back then, coming in at like 17 years old, being young and raw and, but here in 2019, there's heavy astrology and numerology in this shit, in my opinion. All right. So you were given the math. You had to master your mathematics first. Then you were given your supreme alphabets, right? Some will also correlate it to be supreme is a term that's used. There's a debate about this, or living mathematics and alphabet, which some will use that term in this day and time. And some brothers I know will use that term in this day and time because that's obviously bringing it up into real time. Now, I look at it, it's both. It's supreme in the sense that it's complete, fulfilled its purpose, and supreme means that, just supreme. But true and living mathematics means you are an individual in this day and time, be it a god or an earth, that is able to put that into perspective. So that's a matter of perception, not my point, not nothing to argue and debate over, because remember, one of the things you're taught in learning these degrees, you're supposed to break it down how you see it as a god or earth, not just the way it's written out, verbatim, word for word. And when you're in a cipher building, you shouldn't quote it just word for word. Yeah, you can quote the degree, but then as a god, you gotta be able to add on to that degree. How do you see it as a god? This is how I was taught. All right. So the next set of degrees, after getting your mathematics, your alphabet, your 12 jewels of Islam. Now, some say you don't get the 12 jewels of Islam till later. I know some brothers didn't get it till after, towards the end. That's not how I got it. I got it. Again, I'm giving it to you how I got in that order. And the 12 jewels of Islam to me are necessities in life. You don't need to be quote unquote a 5% to understand that. We should all be striving for those things every day in our life. So now I hope slowly but surely you're starting to see the occult connection to this on the path to self-mastery, because that's what the whole foundation of the teachings of the Nation of Gods and Earth are, that you are God. You do not worship anything outside of yourself. You do not believe in spook gods You don't believe in groveling in front of statues. You believe that you are the sole controller and ruler of your universe, the master of your destiny. I mean, if you're on this path, what's wrong with that? You understand? And this is why I can say in this day and time, even though I don't have any direct affiliation with any of these quote unquote conscious organizations, and I know, like I said, I know the nation don't consider themselves a conscious group for what it represents. To me, they're the only one that really their degrees and lessons stand the test of time. That's just my opinion. I believe all the other shit that you get out there, unfortunately, in these groups is just a lot of back and forth fussing and debating. All right, so 12, the mathematics, the alphabet, 12 joules, the 1 to 10 student enrollment. We just went over that. Now, I'm not going to go, I'll go through these in brief and jest. I don't know if I'm going to go for them line by line. But the next section that you would receive for the most part, and again, not every brother got these in this order. I know some got them in different orders. But again, as I was saying back then, it wasn't like today where I'm hearing, because you can access them on the internet and shit, brothers and sisters are just getting them all at one time. It wasn't like that back then. You were given to them in sections after you mastered certain degrees. All right. So the next section you would get, or I got, was the 1 to 14, right? The Lost and Found Muslim lesson 1 to 14, right? And I'm just going to go over the questions. I'm not going to. Okay, the first one. This would be. I'm sorry. I skipped one. I'm going to go in the order. The 1 to 36. My bad. Not the 1 to 14 is the next one. That would start on the 47th degree. So the next one you get is the Muslim lesson C1, which is the 1 to 36, which consists of degrees 11 to 46. The 1 to 14 would start 47 to 50 something, I believe, when we get to it. These are simple one-line degrees, but this is now giving you some historical information. Now, there's some debate. Are these characters literal in the lessons? My name is W.F. Muhammad. That's the 11th degree. I came to the wilderness of North America by myself. That's the 12th degree. Now, let me stop a minute with there's a big controversy with W.F. Muhammad. I've always been at debate with the Nation of Islam over this concept. As you know, if you've ever seen the appearance of W.F. Muhammad, he can, appear. Well, not appear. He looks, he can look European. He's actually can even look in some pictures more fair-skinned than me. He looks sometimes in some pictures British or European. Now, they'll say in the degrees that he was a descendant of a half black, half white. My debate was, if the original Asiatic God was black, what's the purpose of him coming in mixed form? It never made no sense. Well, that was to come and teach the masses this and that. I get that. But to me, I still think there was some play up there to still focus people on man worship. Now, this is more so in the NOI. I'm not saying that there usually ain't as big of controversies with this in the Nation of Gods and Earths, but I know I've had a lot of the in-depth discussions and debates with Nation of Islam brothers where, you're talking all this spoo against the white man being the devil, this and that, but yet the man that you say that came in the personage of God in the flesh doesn't really look, 100% black. And I don't have no problem with that. I'm just saying to me, it's kind of, hypocritical to say that, but then some people that may not be familiar with the teachings might look at who W.F. Fard Muhammad is. Yeah, and I know this says some degrees on it, but that's not how people are going to take it. It's going to kind of look hypocritical. So let me say that. I just want to throw that out there. Degree 13, my uncle was brought over here by a trader 379 years ago. What these degrees are basically going to show you: the slave trade, how the lost tribe of Shabazz, as they refer to, got here into the wilderness of North America, right? And again, I'll just go through them. But this would comprise the degrees 11 to 46. It's known as the 1 to 36, though. He did not speak his own language. My uncle did not know he was my uncle. He likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. Now, you're going to hear this term that can come religious, the devil, right? We know on this path, we look at the devil as just being an adversary. So I had to apply this now in this day and time. I'm not looking at, when I see that term, I know the root and origin of that word means the adversary, right? So the devil can be something or anybody that's adverse to a certain situation or scenario. So this is talking about those who are adverse to the original teachings of the original man. That's what it's referring to. All right. It sometimes gets more focused on the physicality of the ethnicity because of what it says in the 1 to 10. Again, this is my take on it now. I don't get caught up in all of that rhetorical semantics and nonsense, right? The problem I would have here is, how can God or Allah have an uncle? So this has been a debate. You can't be Allah in the personage of flesh, but yet you had an uncle, because remember, this is supposed to be Allah speaking, right? And Allah, Master Prophet Muhammad, communicated these degrees to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then he's the one that put these, into this form that we see here. So it don't make sense that Allah would have an uncle. That kind of is an oxymoron. But again, are we going to waste our time and energy getting caught up in that nonsense, or let's focus on what the story is telling, right? So let's continue. All right. Why does he fear the devil? That he is a grown man. No, okay, let me back up. We're on degree 17. Why does he like the devil? Because the devil planted fear in him when he was a little boy. Because why does he fear the devil now that he's a grown man? Because the devil taught him to eat the wrong foods. Let me stop. Have we not been miseducated by the powers that be to eat the wrong shit? So we're showing you how not just the physical enslavers can put you in captivity physically. We're showing how you can be put into captivity mentally by, one, taking your language, taking your culture, your way of life. And then on top of that, instead of not just feeding you bad physical food, as it says here, but they're feeding you bad mental food. Remember, there's two types of food, spiritual food and physical food. So the objective of the captors was to give you bad food mentally and spiritually and bad food physically. I mean, this is nothing to even argue and dispute about, right? All right. Does that have anything to do with the above question? Number 10. Okay. Yes, it makes him act other than himself. Meaning when you're programmed with the wrong foods, the wrong information, and you're indoctrinated, it takes you outside of what you really are. Remember, on this path, we're seeking to create our own path to self-mastery, not dictated to us by somebody else, but created and formulated by us for us to fit and suit what we're trying to accomplish. Ain't nothing to dispute about that, right? Then it goes on to say, now that, again, I'm going to give you my take on it now on this path, all right? What is his own self? A righteous Muslim. Are there any Muslims other than righteous? I beg your pardon. I've never heard of one. Okay. When it's saying that, if you're not on the path, because remember, what does Islam mean according to the degrees? I, self, Lord, and master. The key word is master. So when you're not practicing Islam, don't get caught up. Remember the term Muslim. Here's another mistranslation you will see in the Islamic world in general, whether it be in any quote unquote school of Islam. They will tell you incorrectly, the word Muslim means one who submits. That is not true. The root word of that word is very simple. You don't even need to be an Arabic scholar to understand that. The word mu is the word for one in Arabic. And then you have the root word of salam, peace. When you're saying musalam or Muslim, you're saying one of peace. Where the fuck do they get this translation? And they never because the average person that clings on to these techniques don't do any of the research, so they don't know. Where are they getting this from? It means one who submits. Don't you see the mental fuckery and the slavery mindset in that? Because they're trying to tell you what their plan is when you convert to mainstream Islam. They're trying to get you to submit so your mind can be open and indoctrinated with their bullshit. Because anybody that knows, whether they're from this country or from any Arab country that speaks Arabic, will tell you the word salam does not mean one who surrenders. Question we need to ask ourselves is, that was something we were taught as American convert. When I converted to Ansar or the Ansarullah, and I used to run into Sunnis all over the place, that's what they used to say. Well, Muslim means one who submits. That's not what it means in the language when you start doing your basic research. So when it's saying here, makes him other than himself, one who is of peace, I, self, Lord, and master. So when you're indoctrinated with all that bullshit, All that stuff is removed from you. You are other than yourself, the true and living God, or the earth, which is a reflection of that God. But as I said earlier, I believe you need both of those masculine and feminine energies to make up, quote unquote, what that power of God represents, right? All right. Then it goes on to say, how many original Muslims are there in the wilderness of North America? A little over 17 million. Let's not get into the semantics of the number. That was the number at that time that was used. Do you mean to tell me some of the 17 million do not know that they are Muslims? Yes, sir. I can hardly believe that unless they were deaf, dumb, and blind. They were made deaf, dumb, and blind when they were babies, right? How many times do we say on this path, from the moment we came out of our mother's womb, we were indoctrinated with the assistance of them because they didn't know no better, our parents. This is a fact. Even though it was written back then, you cannot tell me that this shit still don't apply in 2019, because it does. I don't give a shit what anybody says. It does. That's a fact. We've been indoctrinated. The indoctrination started when we were babies, right? Can a devil fool a Muslim? No, not nowadays, right? Apply that as you being on this path of self-mastery. Can you be deceived? Now that you're, quote unquote, you're vibrating at the right frequency, you are in tune. No, you can't be fooled or deceived anymore, because you can smell religion, faith, belief, and bullshit from a mile away. So apply that concept of one who is a self-lord and master, a righteous Muslim. You can't be deceived no more. And I'm saying, I'm using the term symbolically and metaphorically. I'm not presenting these teachings, the mainstream. Now, again, the mainstream members might have a different perspective on this. I'm not interested in that. And again, it's no knock. We're looking at this from an occult perspective. I want to be clear on that. All right. All right. Then it goes on to say, do you mean to say that he fooled them 379 years ago? Yes, the trader made it an inner orientation, saying that they would receive more gold for their labor, more than they were earning in their country. Did they ever receive more gold? No. No, they didn't. The trader disappeared and there was no one left to speak their language. Then what happened? They wanted to go home but could not swim 9,000 miles. This is telling the story of how the slaves were taken out of Africa and brought to this country. This is a fact. Okay, this can't be disputed. It has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with hate. This is a historical fact. Were not the slaves lured out of various different parts of Africa with the promise of gold and wealth, and then when they got to this country, the shaft was run on them. Look, let's not deny that that's not a reality. That's a reality. That's fact, right? Speaks for itself. So I don't even know why anybody would waste their time arguing on that. Now, if you want to get picky and semantics and how it happened, and some people get into all that, what do you mean they swim 9,000 miles? What do you mean 300? See, that's the shit. When I was one of them young wild boys back in the day, that's that shit that just, again, creates useless debates. I'm not worried, because what it's doing is taking away from the core essence of the teaching. I'm not interested in, I told you again, that was the number that was appropriate at that time, these degrees. Now remember, this was conveyed to what? Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the what? 40s? Keep that in mind. Here we are, what? 80 something years later, or a little bit under 80 years later, 79 years later, something like that. I mean, let's use common sense. If you're a god or a goddess, use common sense when you're reading this. If you're going to look at it literal and think just like somebody with the Bible or the Quran and think everything in there should be taken literally, you're confused. All right? Totally confused. All right? So then it goes on to say, because their own people did not know they were over here. So some didn't know, why they were taken captive and didn't return. When did their own people find out they were over here? Approximately 60 years ago. Okay? That would comprise, as I said, your 11 to 46th degree, which would be your 1 to 36, the lost English lesson C1. The next would be the 1 to 14. All right. So before I get into that, the 1 to 14 will comprise your next 14 degrees, right? So this would be degree, I believe, to degree 60 or 61. All right. And I'm going to go through half of them. I'm going to stop there. And then next week we will finish out. I'll go over the universal flag, which is this. Very occultic in nature. If you look, it's the 8-pointed star, right? Tell me, I just did a video the other day on the 8-pointed star of chaos. Tell me as an occultist, you can't look at this. I'll go over the meanings and the degrees when we get to it. But you see that chaos with that 7 in the middle, the sun, moon, and stars. We'll give the breakdown in the lessons, but I gravitate to this symbol because when I look at God in the center of it, representing that sun, God on earth and God of the universe, I also look at it as that primordial chaos energy that comes into existence. That's a whole nother story. We'll get to that when we get to it. So before we go to 1 to 14, Lady Shalice Simmons, I sent you an email. I think it was yesterday or the other day, responding to your email. I didn't see it in my outbox. I'm not sure if you got it, so I sent you a follow-up one earlier, not too long ago. I didn't look back yet to see, but if you didn't get it, let me know. I'll resend it. For some reason, I don't see it in the sent box going out. So I don't know if something went wrong or maybe it went to a spam box or it could just be an electronic error. It didn't go through. But let me know if you didn't get it. I'll resend it. All right. And when I finish with this, I hope you guys got some questions on it. So I'm just going to go through half of this. I might come on Thursday or Friday and maybe finish this so we can move on to something else. But I hope you're getting the gist of seeing what the degrees are about and how you can utilize this and apply this still on this path. Like I say, though technically I am not a full-fledged member and belong to any particular chapter of the 5% Nation, I do still apply these teachings and degrees on this path because they stand the test of time. That's just my opinion. All right, so degree 47. Let me get this in front of me, actually. Be a little easier reminder to see me with my notes here. Eyes get old, the eyes start to go in. It says, why isn't the devil settled on the best part of the planet Earth, right? Because the earth belongs to the original man, and knowing that the devil is weak and wicked, and there will be no peace amongst them, he put them on the worst part and kept the best part reserved for himself. Ever since he made it the best part in Arabia at the holy city of Mecca, the colored or Caucasian man is the devil. And remember, the devil in the sense that he is adverse, not a religious devil, because we got to get that out of our mind. We don't even use that term because that's why when you can look on this path, the concept of devil, because the devil just means adversary, right? That could be applied to so many different methods. At time, we have to take on the role of the adversary when we need to be adverse to these conformist, spiritualist ideas that they've been enforcing on us for day one. So I removed that religious concept because when you use the religious concept, you're back to that spookism, all right? But I'm going to present it as it is here and then go forward, okay? All right, so the best part is Arabia at the holy city of Mecca. The color is the devil. Arabia is in the far east and is bordered by the Indian Ocean in the south, all right? So now it's telling you, we see where the riches and where the prosperity is on the planet. Nobody's going to dispute that. And it's telling you in quite simplistic terms where the rich and poor parts of the planet. Speaks for itself. Now, here's where some of the historical data can get a little etchy. I personally, this was one of the problems as I scrutinized the lessons. Now, even though being in it for the short period of time, but even when I wasn't in it, I would occasionally go back. And this is where I probably had some issues because I just think this historical stuff, I look at it more symbolic. I can't really take this as literal because it can't be factually supported. Now, having said that, being where I am at now spiritually on the path that I'm on, I'm not worried about focusing on that because that's irrelevant to me in this day and time. It's pointless, right? So they're referring to this character Musa, who the Bible knows as Moses, claiming he's a half original. And as you get through the degrees, you learn more about Musa and what he represented. Now, I don't know if that fully can be backed up or supported, but I look at what it represents and how I can apply it to self, all right? So let's not focus on that. So degree 48, why did Musa have a hard time civilizing the devil in the year 2000 BC? Because he was a savage and a person who lost all knowledge of himself. That's what it's described. A savage is someone who's lost all knowledge of himself and is living a beast way of life. That doesn't just apply to Europeans or white folks because there are blacks or Latinos that live a savage way of life. And the term beast is used in this sense on your path when you have no wisdom, you have no knowledge, you're just running amok. You're not on any type of path. You're basically a puppet. You're a conformist. You basically are dictated to. You're a follower. So that beast state not being on this path could represent a multitude of things to us, right? Then it goes on to say BC means before Christ. In the Asiatic world, it was in the year 11,000. Civilizing means, this is what they mean when they say uncivilized. And what is every god's or earth's job? His duty is to teach and civilize the uncivilized. When we get to the 1 to 40 and we start talking about, and we get to the other degrees and we start talking about breaking down where the term 5% comes from. And I noticed when I came on today, if you look on your keyboard, right, look at the number 5. What do you see right above it? Right, it's just the way the mind communicates, Tom. On all your keyboards, right above 5, you got the percent symbol. That's a whole nother story. Just thought I'd throw that little mind thing out there at you. All right, so it means when you say uncivilized, meaning to teach no knowledge and wisdom to all. No, this is what they don't point out, to all the human families on the planet Earth. It just didn't say black only. It said it is a God's duty to teach and civilize all the human families on the planet Earth. That part, I think, is overlooked in the degrees for people who aren't familiar with the degrees or are not members, and they try to find ammunition to promote the 5% nation, the nation of gods and earths, as a hate group or a hate organization. And I don't look at it like that. All right. All right, so that's degree 48. Degree 49. Why did the half original man like Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth? Because the original man is God, owner of the planet Earth, knowing every square inch of it. He chosen for himself the best part. He did not care about the poor part. Columbus was a half original man born in Italy, which is Southeast Europe. His full name was Christopher Columbus. And the place which he discovered was North America. He found Indians here who were exiled from India 16,000 years ago. They are the original people. Remember, the original people of India were the Dravidians. They were the original Africans that migrated from Africa to what we know today as parts of Asia. This is a fact. Undisputed. Ain't even nothing really to dispute here unless you want to get into the semantics. To me, I'm focused on what the core essence of the teaching represents. If you want to waste your time back and forth on titles, exact years, nobody fucking, like for an example, the earth contracting, expanding, and the sky. As we're sitting here, it's contracting and expanding all the time. So that's constantly changing. Why would I even want to fucking waste my time and energy debating that nonsense? All right. But then it goes on to say, in degree 50, why did we run Yaqub and his made devils from the roots of civilization across the Arabian desert into the caves of West Asia, as they now call Europe? What is the meaning of Yu and Ro? How long ago? What did he bring with him? What kind of life did he live in? And how long before Musa came to teach the devil of the forgotten trick knowledge, right? What this is describing, and without going through all of it in detail, it's describing how this work of civilization was done to the uncivilized during them times. How to this day, there's still a form of trick knowledge taught by those who have the Yaqub energy, right? The Yaqub energy, to me, on this path now represents those who are deceiving, those who have an agenda, those who use deception tactics to teach false information. You understand? Now, I also take into account truth is based on perception, because now there's a trick in itself when you say this, and this only is exclusively all truth. We got to be careful with that. That's where some differences of opinion might come in on the degrees and my perception of it, all right? Then it goes on to say the answer to the 50th degree, which is number 4 in the 1 to 14, because they started causing trouble amongst the righteous people. Now, this is talking about history. This is telling you how this system of doctrination came upon melanated people in this country. This is a fact by way of slavery. Again, it's not hate. It's historical facts. I don't give a fuck what ethnicity you are. This is just common sense. And if it upsets you or if it angers you, then maybe you got some hate in your body you haven't addressed, or something that's inciting you. Look, knowing my background and my mixed ethnicity, this never offended me. It didn't offend me then, now, or that. Because like I said, I've been confused over the years for being white, being Arab, being Mexican, whatever. The list goes on and on and on. So I understand that bullshit. Some people, can get offended by this. I'm trying to get people that may not be familiar with it. I'm doing this video for twofold. For those that may not be familiar with it, to take the hate and the negativity out of it. But I also want you who are on this path, how you can utilize this. I look at these degrees now on this path, even more so than I did then. This can be a very empowering self-mastery tool. That's a fact. Now, that's up to you. I'm not doing this because I'm saying you need to start studying these lessons tomorrow. I'm going to leave that choice up to you. If this is something that don't resonate with you, then it just don't resonate with you. But I've found I utilize this on my path. So I will consistently pick up my degrees and lessons and study. I will, even if it's to myself, do my math and alphabet for the day. Because I've found it's a great language, great communication system that Father Law came up with that gets the activation of that 9 God mind, right? You know what I'm saying? It gets that flowing. And like I say, it's not a coincidence that just about a year ago, I decided to repick these back up. To me, that was that inner being, that God that dwells within speaking, or as we call that higher self, the higher daemon, right? When we use that term. So it's a beautiful thing. So now it goes on to say the answer, because they started causing trouble amongst the righteous people, telling lies, accusing them, causing them to fight and kill one another. Does this not go on today? Is there not an agenda still today to cause separation amongst the races, especially amongst Black folks worldwide and other races too? Because look, when you look amongst Latinos, look at the self-hate and the racism they got amongst each other. Mexicans don't like Cubans. Cubans don't like Mexicans. Puerto Ricans don't like Dominicans. And over stupid shit, they speak a different dialect. I heard one motherfucker didn't like what was it? A Cuban. Puerto Rican didn't like a Cuban because they spoke Spanish too fast and they had slang. What kind of stupid shit is this? You understand? What kind of dumb shit is this? So is not this trick knowledge still used on us today in 2018? Where not only is there's hate amongst the ethnicities that quote unquote belong to the same ethnic group or race. This is a fact, right? Yaqub was an original man and father of the devil. He taught them to do his devilishment, the roots of civilization. This, to me, I wouldn't take this historical data factual, because really, I'm going to be honest with you, I got to bear witness. It can't factually 100% be proven. But having said that, to me, it's pointless to debate it because it takes away from the essence of who cares. I really couldn't care, right? Which means they were knowledge, wisdom of the original man started ever since the planet Earth was first founded. We ran the devil across the hot Arabian desert. We took everything except their language and walked them every step of the way. It was 2,200 miles. There's a lot of numerology in this, and I'll get to that in a minute. He then went savage and lived in the caves of Europe. EU means hillside. Rope means to bind in. It was 6,000 years ago. And that, when you look phonetically, that's what the word Europe means. The word Caucasian has its root in the word Caucasus Mountains. It just means an Asian from the Caucasus region. And we know the descendants of the Caucasus region, or 100% Caucasian, was from the Caucasus Mountains, right? Now, the question is, who really in this day and time is 100% Caucasian? That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time, right? I think it's important we also know this on this path. One thing that I think that lacks, quote unquote, on the left-hand path or the path of self-mastery, we tend not to talk about race, not in a hateful way, but we have to address it. It does exist. And I do believe in some circles, I'm not saying all, and that's why I like a lot of the Egyptian left-hand path aspect of it, because even the European authors in those books recognize the divinity of the original Black man being the originators and the founders. I don't think there's enough of that on this path. I got to be honest with you. That's why you'll always hear me talk over the years. That's another more trick knowledge by the Yaqub energy, as if this path was started or white or Europeans lay claim to be the originators of this path. That's not true. I also haven't said that. It doesn't matter what race or ethnicity you are, in my opinion, on this path. But I'm just saying, when we're dealing with historical facts and data, we should give credit where credit is due. Now, I know some people would like to act like this racial stuff still doesn't exist. We would be ignorant to say it doesn't. If you don't think racism still exists and is not a reality and being perpetrated every day, then you're living in a fairy tale world. But this path teaches you not to let that get you reactive and let it control you and define you. I want to say that. I want to throw that in. The problem is, on a lot of these other paths, it's used as a crutch to lean on in a lot of circles. It gives people a crutch in the sense to lean on, to be angry and pissed off, and it doesn't get you to the point motivated to do anything to bring about change. Remember, real change starts with yourself first. You can't save the whole fucking world. If you think you're going to save the whole world, you understand, without getting your shit in order, you're completely delusional. All right. All right. So it says he then went savage. Okay, we went that. Musa came 2,000 years later to teach the devil how to live a respectable way of life. how to build homes for themselves, and some of the forgotten trick knowledge that Yaqub had taught them, which was devilishment, telling lies, stealing, and how to master the original man. Musa was a half original man and a prophet that was predicted by the 23 scientists in the year 15,019 years ago. Now, I've seen people debate this. Where are they getting the concept that Musa was a half original man when you go into biblical history? I say fuck all that, because there was no historical religious character that can be proven that was called Musa. Musa is the Arabic name for Moses. Moses is the Greek name Moshe. It means he who was drawn out of water, right? Moshe is the Hebrew name, right? Moses is the Greek name. Musa is the Arabic name. It means he who was drawn out of water. We know the story when we read the story, that he was found in the Nile River and taken out of the water. So he who was, most of those names were titles describing the action. Now, here's the deeper thing. When you go back into the history, when you get to that story of the Israelites and Moses, is nowhere on any ancient Egyptian records you will find the history of any group of people called the Israelites being in bondage in Egypt for 430 years. Can't find it. It doesn't exist. So the question that's posed when you do your research, if you want to get all historical, this is why I disregard all this shit. To me, it's pointless. You'll find Thutmose the first of ancient Egypt, who you'll see was the one who's in charge of the Kafir, right? Which was like the inner sanctum of the pyramids. Very similar to what? The Levitical priesthood being held over the Ark of the Covenant, right? They took this story literally from their word verbatim. All you got to do is go do the research. Thutmose the first of ancient Egypt, and that same meaning when you break down the name, even though that's the Greek terminology. You have that mosaic being drawn. What did he do? He was the one responsible for leading the war against the Hyksos and driving them out of Egypt, right? All you got to do is go do your research to see that. You will find on Egyptian records that there were a group of people in Egypt, invaders that came in and settled there for 430 years and were driven out. Now, it's not a coincidence that that story is identical to the Israelite story in the Bible. So now this kind of refutes this Musa being half original thing, the question that can come up if you really want it. And I've talked about this with brothers. Where are we getting this concept from? But again, I think we have to just kind of put that aside, not in the sense to, act like it doesn't exist. It's historically inaccurate. I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. But I think we need to look at what the teaching represents and focus more on that. Because you could easily refute it. So I'm giving you guys the history so you can go do your own research. I want you to look at that story. So the simple question is, we have to question the validity of any of those biblical stories. Because bottom line is, and I told you, if you go into that Oxford annotated Bible and you go into the commentary in the back, and you can email him, I'll give it to you where you can find it, a verse. Even those scholars are saying they're attributing the Israelite story to the story of the Hyksos in ancient Egypt. It's not a coincidence. All right. All right. Where the hell did I leave off? Okay, here we go. All right, so degree 54, which is the 8th degree in the 1 to 14 of Lost and Found. Why does the devil, I'm sorry. Where the fuck did I leave off? Something ain't right. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. Degree 51. Why did we take Jerusalem from the devil and how long ago? Okay, this is talking about during the times of the crusade, historical fact. Because one of our righteous brothers who was a prophet by the name of Jesus. Now, I got a little problem with this because now knowing there is no historical Jesus. Yes, on the surface, people equate it, is this talking about the Heru or the savior figure? Krishna can be a Jesus. You can find this savior type of figure in many different cultures. Was there literally a character called Jesus? Absolutely not. But again, let's focus on the esoteric meanings of this teaching, of these degrees. Was buried there, and they used his name to shield their dirty religion, which is called Christianity, also deceived the people so that they would believe in this all. Does not these world governments and political leaders use Jesus and Christianity and other religions to hide behind, to start wars and kill and murder innocent people? That's what I focus on when I read this degree. I'm not worried about fuck all that dumb shit. Was Jesus real? Now, we could be here all day talking that stupidity shit. I think that's also a trick by the Yaqub energy to get us distracted from focusing on the core essence of the teaching. What is the core essence of this teaching in this degree? Real simple. Is it not a fact that religion is used as a tool worldwide to keep the masses controlled? Is it not used as a tool worldwide to start wars and kill innocent women and children? Is that not a fact? That's the shit you need to focus on when you read this degree. Fuck off. Well, Jesus wasn't real. You got Negroes still arguing over that shit today on videos. I don't give a fuck. What I get out of that teaching when I read it, did we not have to drive these charlatans out of Jerusalem? When you go during the times of the Crusades, there was a war over Jerusalem. There was a war. Who were the rightful heirs to the holy city? Go do your history on the Crusades. This is a fact, right? Jesus was not teaching Christianity. It was freedom, justice, and equality. Jesus was, in my path, what we would call left-hand path practitioner slash on the path to self-mastery. He was a nonconformist. He was, according to the stories, I'm saying, let me make this clear. What was he saying? They were saying, blasphemy, you say you are God, right? This is all good. What did he say? Is it in John chapter 10, verse 34? What did he say? Is it not written in your law? I said that you God. He fucked him up because he said, it is not written in your law. What was he referring to? Psalms chapter 82, verse 6. What does it say in there? Ye are gods. All of you are children of the Most High. He wasn't referring to a spook God because the very next verse says what? And ye will die like men. See, when we're saying God, you got to get out of your mind this spook concept of some God that resides in the sky somewhere. That's not what he meant. And Jesus came in those stories, what they represent is removing all that trick knowledge, that Yakub knowledge. Because remember, he said he was in opposition to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the modern day political structure and power. He was totally adverse to that. He was a rebel. Where are these Christians getting this peace and love shit and this restricted religious dogma, rules and regulations? Jesus was the opposite. The thing I get killed with Christians is Jesus didn't go to the learned. Jesus went to the charlatans, the taxpayers that were ripping people off, the prostitutes, the homeless, the elderly, the sick. Now, I'm not saying there's no Christians that don't do that, but most Christians on a wide scale level, that they see a homeless person, they shun them, right? They ain't really doing shit like that. Jesus went to he said, I came to teach those who are in need, those who are educated and the wealthy, right? Remember the one parable with Nicodemus when he said, what do I got to do? The metaphor, it's not teaching you to be broke, but what do I got to do to come and follow you? You say, give up everything you have and come follow me. What did dude say? Hell no. I can't give up all that shit. Same thing with the power structure today. They ain't trying to give up the fucking power. Religion is used as a tool to control the mass. I've been saying that shit since day one. That's a fact. I don't care. You don't have to agree with it. You might get mad because you might be religious and it upsets you. Bottom line is, the God of the Bible and the Quran is responsible for all the death, destruction, hate, and what they term as evil all across the planet. Because just about every conflict on the planet now, I'm not saying all, but I would say probably 90% of the conflicts that exist worldwide have some type of element of religion connected to it. The degrees are telling you that. So does that not apply in this day and time? Absolutely. That's why I still read these degrees. Okay, you don't have to be a full-fledged member of the nation of gods and earth. The only reason why I can't conform to all that restriction and the rules, because the problem is when you belong to these organizations, there's protocol. I'm not going to answer anybody's protocol, but don't mean you still can't study and master them for self. All right. So it goes on to say Jerusalem is in Palestine, which is in Asia Minor. Jerusalem is the name given by the Jews, which means founded in peace, Yerushalayim in Hebrew, and was first built by the original man who was called Jebus Salim in area. We took Jerusalem from the devil 750 years ago, giving you some crusade history. All right. We're just going to finish these 1 to 14. We're almost done. And then I'll go into the chat. So I will do another part on this because I want to throw all this out in one sitting. To me, it's going to be too much, an overload. I'm going to give it to you all. I hope this motivates you to maybe take it further and study these degrees. You understand? All right. So let's go to degree 6 in the 1 to 14, which would be degree 52nd. 52. Just depends on how you have your degrees in order. But when you go in according to the 1 to 21, it'd be degree 52. But it would be in the 1 to 14 degree number 6. Why does the devil teach and keep our people so illiterate? This is fact. So that he can use them as a tool and also a slave. He keeps them blind to themselves so he can master them. Illiterate means ignorant. Do we need to even discuss that? Nothing wrong with that. Degree 53. 7 in the 1 to 14. Why does the devil call our people Africans? I'm gonna give you two twists on this. To make our people here in North America believe that the people on that continent are the only people they have and they are all savages. He brought a trading post into the jungle of that continent. The original people living on that continent are the ones who are strayed away from the civilization and are living a jungle way of life. The original people call this continent Asia, but the devil calls it Africa to try and divide us and make us think that we're all different. It's pointing out two things here. We know the original Asiatics and the Dravidians of what we now call India and Asia was once a part of Africa. When you get Pangea, continental drift, there's a dispute. We know the land masses were connected. It depends on, some were saying, was it before or prior? Again, I'm not going to get into all that because in my opinion, it takes away again from the core essence of the teaching. If you want to debate that back and forth semantics, at the end of the day, what is it going to do for you? Now that you know that if it was or was not, how is that going to help and get you results on whatever the fuck it is you're trying to do? It's nothing. Okay. I would also look at it. The word Africa comes from the Greek word aphorik, which means to separate, right? This is why we know the original name of the continent could not be called Africa. And that's why I was giving you the breakdown of Alkebulan, Egypt, Nubia, Nuba. And when you look at all those titles, Tar, these were titles describing things that predate. Aphorik, which means to separate, is a fact, as it says here. Even though the lessons don't say that, but when I do my research and do my add-on build, I get the reason why, to create that separation. And it even confirms the degrees prior to it. What it said up there, how religion being as a tool, separation, indoctrination, the whole fucking nine. It even confirms the degrees prior to it. That's a reality, all right? Degree 8 in the 1 to 14, which is degree 54. Why does the devil keep our people apart from his social equality? This is a good one. How I look at this today, unbelievable. Because he does not want us to find out how filthy he is in all his affairs. He is afraid that when we find out about him, we would run from him amongst us. Social means to advocate a society or a group of men for one common cause. Equality means for everything, or to be equal in everything, right? So let me say this. Look at politics today and with Donald Trump. You see the powers that be have an agenda now, obviously, to create this separation when it comes to social equality. There is not all equal social equality for all. That's a fact. So somebody did the okie dokie on us. And I told y'all, if you go, well, I wasn't on YouTube at the time, but for those that know me and were taking classes when Obama got in on his first term, everybody was acting like, holy shit, we got it made. Party City. And I told you, that was, they were getting ready to do the big switcheroo on you. They put Obama in there because at that time, people had just about had enough. So that was to appease the masses. And now, look, they took him out and they put somebody in there worse than George Bush, right? This is how I apply this lesson on this day. And this was written how long ago? You mean you can't tell me that this shit still don't apply in 2019. It's personal, all right? Degree 55, which is the 9 and the 1 to 14. Why did Muhammad make the devil study from 35 to 50 years before he can call himself a Muslim son and wear the greatest and only flag of the universe? And why must he add a sword to the upper part of the greatest and holy universal flag of Islam? Masons, Muslim sons, we're going to break that down. Here's the answer, and we'll get into that a little bit. So that he can clean himself up. A Muslim does not love a devil regardless to how long he has studied. But after he has devoted 35 to 50 years in trying to be like the original man, we allow him amongst to do trading, and we would not kill him as quick as we would other devils. That is those, we would not kill him as quick as we would other devils. That is those who have not gone under the study. After he has gone through this, with this labor from 35 to 50 years, we permit him to wear our holy flag, right? Or placed on the upper part of the flag. I'm sorry, the sword is an emblem of justice, which was used by the original man in Muhammad's time. Thus, the sword was placed on the upper part of the flag so that the devil can always see it, and keep in mind that if he ever reveals the secret that we gave him, a chance to clean himself up and come amongst us, his head shall be taken off by the sword. The holy flag of Islam is the greatest and only flag known in the universe. The universe is everything, sun, moon, and stars. They are all planets. Planets are something that has been made or grown from the beginning. Holy is something that has not been mixed, diluted, or tampered with in any form. There's a lot of Masonic, secret order, Eastern mysticism encoded in that. Masonry incorporates that. That's why a lot of the nation will refer to Masons as Muslim sons, meaning those who are getting just partial of the truth. One of my interests in going into Masonry and why I did, because I wanted to get that experience firsthand. Part of that motivation was this degree. Part of it was for other reasons. But there's a lot of, when you read that degree, there's a lot of mysticism and occult orders in it, like Masonry, etc., because you are sworn to oaths and secrecies. Masonry kind of tells you the same thing. If you give up the oath, you're slit across the throat, your tongue is pulled and cast out to the sea. It's a similar thing. So what they're saying here, amongst that inner circle, you had to, again, show your worth. If you were not part of the original man or the original man's teachings 35 to 50 years, you would have to study before you could even wear the flag. And the sword was put there as a reminder, if you ever gave up any secrets or strayed away, what could happen to you. Now, again, I look at this more so symbolic than literal, just like you look at it on the Masonic degrees. You're told the same thing. If you violate your oath or you don't adhere to the teachings, doesn't mean if you violate the Masonic teachings that they're gonna come to your house and slit your tongue out. No. So let's look at this like mature fucking adults. All right. All right. We got 4 more we're gonna get through, 5 more, and then we're done for today. Why did degree 10 and the 1 to 14, which is degree number 56? Why did Muhammad or any other Muslim murder the devil? What is the duty of each Muslim in regards to 4 devil heads? And what reward does a Muslim receive by having presented 4 devil heads at one time? Now, there's been huge debate over this, and there's a video. I can send you the link. It's a video. I believe it's on the law school page. It doesn't mean you have to go literally kill 4 devils or uncivilized people, right? This has been a highly debatable thing over the years. Now, maybe it meant in those times, but again, if we're going to get caught up in debating the literal aspect, because I've seen people use this as a teaching, hey, this advocates or the teaching of going out innocently harming and killing people. That's not true. I want to clarify that. Let's give the breakdown on this. Because he is 100% weak and wicked and will not keep and obey the laws of Islam. His ways and actions are like that of a snake of the grafted type. So Muhammad learned that he could not reform the devil, so he had to be murdered. Any Muslim would murder the devil because he knows that he is a snake, and if allowed to live, he would only sting someone else. Each Muslim is required, right? Is required to bring in 4 devil heads. And by having and presenting 4 devil heads at one time, his reward will be a button to wear on the lapel of his coat and also free transportation to the whole city of Mecca to see their brother Muhammad. That seems like a petty gift for killing 4 people. How do I look at this on the occult path? If you're out there and you are, I look at the destroying of 4 devil heads on this path as teaching and educating somebody. Okay, this is just my take on it. I'm not telling you how to look at it. I'm not telling you if you watch this video and you're a member of the Nation of Gods on Earth. This is how I see it as God. You don't have to see it as God like that. This is how I see it. All right. I don't look at this as literal, because you think somebody's going to kill somebody and bring 4 heads to Muhammad, and all he does is get a button to wear on his lapel and free transportation to Mecca. Let's use common fucking sense here, people. It's a symbolic degree, and how can you apply it to yourself? Okay. Let's look at that. Let's keep it within reason, right? Degree 11 in the 1 to 14, which is degree 57. Have you not heard that your word is bond, regardless to whom or what? Yes, my word is bond, and bond is life, and I will give my life before my word shall fail. Look at that as being committed and loyal on this path, and not going against self. Or in this case, if we're using the teachings of the degrees, I, self, Lord, and Master. Anything that goes against you being I, self, Lord, and Master is not in accordance with you being God. It's that fucking simple. That's how I apply this degree in this day and time, right? What is the meaning? Degree 12, which is degree 58. What is the meaning of FOI? Fruit of Islam, the name given to the military training men belonging to the Nation of Islam in North America. That's something that exists today. Degree 59, which is degree 13. What is the duty of the captain and lieutenant? The duty of the captain is to give orders to the lieutenant. The duty of the lieutenant is to teach and train private soldier. This is kind of talking about structure within the organization. See, this is the stuff. I can't get into all that with all that. That's a whole nother story. I mean, I understand what it represents, and you do need the teaching and the discipline, but in this day, I can't conform to all those rules and regulations. What is the meaning of MGT or GCC? Muslim Girl Training. general civilization class. And general civilization class is given to this day in all the locations. They do this on a weekly basis. This is name given to the training of women and girls that belongs to Islam in North America, teaching them how to raise their children, taking care of their husband, keep a home, cook, sew, in general, how to act home beastly, teach skills, basic skills to females. All right. So that's going to stop. We're going to stop there. That's the first. What you got today. And before we go to the chat, we'll finish up. I'm going to take your questions and your comments. I hope you got some questions in your comments. All right. We're going to get into we're going to start with the 1 to 40 next week, which will be the rest. We'll finish up. You got the first 60 today. Plus you got the 12 jewels of Islam. You got the alphabet. You got the mathematics. So you got the 12 jewels, the alphabet, the mathematics. You got the 1 to 10 student enrollment. You got the Muslim C lesson, 1 to 36. And then you got the Muslim lesson, 1 to 14, the lost and found. That, what we just went over, compiles the first 60 degrees, including the math, alphabet, and 12 jewels of Islam. Okay? So I hope that gives you, so I'm going to do a second part. I'm not going to go, it'll be too much. I don't want to spit all the stuff at one time. It's just going to go in one ear out the other, and then we don't accomplish nothing. All right? All right, give me 1 second. I got to just grab something real quick, check something. I'm going to go through your comments. I see all your questions, your comments. If you just typed in now, I'm going to go back to the top and just go in order, okay? Just want to make that clear. Give me 1 second. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go through the comments and the questions. And again, if you got any other doctrines, anybody got any other suggestions? I thought this was a good suggestion. Maybe another dogma or doctrine you would like to go over and look at it from an occult path to self-mastery perspective. I think it's a good thing we can do because we got to go back. All this stuff, we all came from these different backgrounds. So all this stuff is still a part of us, but this would be the process of deconstruction and reconstruction. That's what we're basically doing when we're using this type of concept that we're doing tonight. Deconstructing something to reconstruct it, right? That's a practice on this path. All right, so let me go up to the top. All right. I don't see too many questions. Or maybe I scrolled up fast. I don't know. All right. Debo89, peace. DR, peace. Brother Duma, peace. Peace to the God. Peace to all the gods on the earth. I know we don't refer to them in these degrees as goddesses, but they are goddesses. I believe you need that male and female energy for both. Brother Gene Butler, what's going on, brother? Good to see you here. Hope everything is well with you. Gypsy Goddess, Salam, Mandela Born, Peace God. I'll see you on Thursday. I know you got the email. Regina Green, peace and blessings. Again, I hope everybody had a whatever you did yesterday. I know I just chilled home. I hope everybody had a healthy and safe New Year. If you went and got your party on, or you stayed home, if you drank, hopefully you ain't too fucked up. Hopefully you ain't got too many hangovers. And hopefully everybody was safe. All right. What else we got? Jada Titan. Peace, brother. Everything's good. I appreciate it, man. Good to see you. Brother Jay Charles. I know Brother Jack's out there traveling the universe. I don't know where he's freezing his balls off tonight. He's probably somewhere up in the mid-northwest over there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Peace to you, brother. I know you'll hit me up when you get back. Mandela Born, like I said, Tanisha, peace. Make it a great year, most definitely. Stray Panther, peace, God. Smooth, the God, peace, peace, Lord. Stray Panther says true. Adore it. Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Stray Panther. About you'll see a lot of numerology in these teachings. And let me touch on that for a quick minute, especially with the math and the alphabet. Like, all right, today, real simple. We said we're when we break down the month, day, year. How can I not just correlate that to the math? But if I'm building in a cipher, how can I incorporate? I like to incorporate the alphabet. Anytime I was in a cipher, and then I get my own take on it. And remember, the degrees are about how you see them as a God, not just the literal word for word, verbatim, how it's written, because I was always taught never to take the lessons just on face value. That would be stupid. That would be like taking the Bible or the Quran on face value. Then you're taking it literal and it just don't make no sense. But anyway, all right, so today being knowledge, today the math is knowledge. We're in the month of knowledge. And like I said in the beginning of the class, the year would be wisdom, cipher, knowledge, born. Now, and born leads to cipher, right? So I look at the math as born in cipher, right? When I take it to the alphabet, first one being A, which is a law, right? So when I take the knowledge, and we're in the knowledge month, does not all knowledge come from Allah? Not Allah being a spook God, because remember, when you say you're Allah, that's just another term for God. Does not all knowledge come or manifest from self, right? We can build on that. Somebody might see it different in the cipher and get their own spin on it. But so I would correlate to Allah, right? And we're in that. This is the year, right? When you look at it, of knowledge born, right? 1-9 on the 2019. So if we're saying knowledge born, who gives birth to all knowledge in the universe? Allah, God. Who is God? You are God, right? Just to give you an example, that all the numerology, the breakdown and the numbers, what it does, it's unique because, as I said earlier, it communicates a certain mental language in addition to a verbal language. So I know if you're not familiar with the teachings, and you might see videos of some of the gods building, it can sound like mumbo jumbo. If you're not familiar with the basics, the alphabet and the math, if you get familiar with your alphabet and math, then you would understand the language, because that's the language that was always used to communicate in the ciphers. And it can sound a little out there and off if you're not familiar with it. So there's a lot of numerology. And that's why I said, as I go back now and reflect and study, it's just my opinion. I think Father Allah studied a lot of higher sciences. And obviously we'll never know exactly what he studied. There might have been some that were there and, knew his personal library or what books he read, I'm sure, because there's still brothers alive today that walked with Father Allah. But I definitely know by his works, he was definitely gifted. He was tapped into something. And what he did in such a short time, even though he was assassinated, was empowering, because the power of what he did still exists today. It's still going strong today. Still growing today. And they're one of the few organizations, if you want to call it that, they're one of the few groups out there, in my opinion, that have stayed true with their foundation, but yet have changed with the times. And that's a tough thing to do. But they've changed with the times, staying true to the core foundation of their teachings. You really can't say that for NOI, because when I look at what NOI, they've really strayed from the original teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in my opinion. If you're going to correlate it to the supreme wisdom, etc., it's not the same. I don't care what anybody says. All right. Brother Kevin Winley, I appreciate the comment. Yo, my brother, I search to and fro on the internet. I can't really find no one, especially dropping the knowledge I drop. I respect that 100. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for watching and supporting, and hopefully you can pass this on to somebody else. But I appreciate the comment, love, and support, no doubt. Lady Shalice Simmons, blessings to all. I know I addressed you earlier. Neek Simone, NIQ, I hope I'm saying that right. Neek Simone, peace, love, peace to you. Sister, appreciate you tuning in. Mandela Born, just taking the word Allah in Islam, which are Arabic words, and make them symbolize English words, which is chaos, magic within itself. Good point. Now, they'll say Allah, as you know, I didn't go over that. I'm glad you bring it up, Mandela Born. Allah, they take the spookism out of it, and they take the English spelling of it. Not Allah like you see in Arabic, alif, lam, lam, it's different. And I think that was another unique thing that Father Allah did, because to me, it's the only culture or way of life that apply. Let me give an example. I'm glad you bring this up. To me, it's the only culture or way of life that applies to Nubians in America. Just like voodoo and hoodoo, to me, is that ancient spirit. That's okay. You do that. All right. Give me 5. I think we got to start connecting what was brought here for us. Again, it's great. We want to connect with things in Egypt and Africa because that's where it has its point of origin. But let's not act like we don't have a history on this soil. And I think what was unique with Father Allah did, he broke it down to bring it to us on this level. We have to connect. Look, I know you got a lot of brothers and sisters that convert to Orthodox Islam. Them motherfuckers ain't never going to accept you in their religion. They always will look at Americans as that, converts to their way of life. Because if you go to all these Sunni masjids, and I got several around here, and yes, believe it or not, I will just go in when they have their open classes, and they do have it. We got 2 big masjids right in this area. And buddy, make sure you close that door, turn the light off, close that door, and wash your hands. You know better to wash your hands. Come on. And turn the light off and close the door. I'll whoop these kids' ass sometimes on this topic. They will never look at you as part of their way of life or culture. You go to these masjids today, it's a Pakistani, some Arab or Hindu or that from some part of the Arab world that's in charge. And there's a bunch of Americans in there from all races, black, white, Latino. That's why I said these are the motherfuckers that teach you Muslim means one who submits. That's not what it means. And I think that's done intentionally. But what I think, what I think that Father Allah did was unique. He took all the spookism out of it. So he took the word Allah in English and really correlated it in simplistic terms to arm, leg, arm, head, which makes up God. And because what they say, the Son of Man is God. Is that not what represent what the Son of Man or God is in flesh? Allah, right? Arm, leg, arm, head. Real simple. And as we talked about the word Islam, my self-Lord and Master, right? I think that's unique. And again, apply the essence of what the teaching represents. Stop getting caught up in the semantics. Yeah, well, I don't think that's the word Islam. That's not what it means in Arabic. Yeah, we know that. And nobody was claiming that that's not what it meant. Or nobody was claiming that they know that's not what it meant. But how can you teach people in this country and bring it to them on their level? Because that was done. What'd you think? Everybody at that time was an Arabic scholar and knew Arabic fluently? Come on, man, that's fucking ridiculous. But I think it's fucking unique, just like Mandela Born is saying, that's chaos in itself. Because he took all the mainstream Orthodox shit and said, that's not, screw all that shit. That's that Orthodox Islam. And he made it clear, when we're saying Allah, we don't mean Allah, the spook god in the sky that you prostrate to 5 times a day. That's not what we mean. We don't mean Muslim or Islam in the sense of Orthodox, Sunni, Shiite, Ahmadiyya Islam. That's not what we mean. Islam, myself, Lord and Master. Muslim, one who is of peace. Peace means many different things. Not peace like love and rent. Peace is what? Positive energy always corrects errors, right? That's what it symbolizes. One of the symbolizations in the degrees. Not peace and love and let's hold hands in this false illusion of peace. Use it in the term. That's another play on words or another way the language is communicated in the degrees, right? Positive energy always corrects errors. Peace. We all should be about striving for that type of peace on this path. Using that positive energy, and that positive is perception, and using that energy to correct the errors. Not just the errors about everything and everybody around, but the errors about yourself. You should always be one who is of peace, right? But I'm glad you bring it up. All right, what else we got? Stray Panther 79 says, one thing I got from the 120 was a need to research and build your own understanding of the info that was provided. Yes, and I agree with that. You always, as a God or earth, you always should have your own perspective on it, right? How do you see it as God? Because that's one thing I know the lessons did for me, and they're doing for me now. They spark you into areas of study, learning about, the Moors, ancient Egypt, Africa, different magical and occult systems. Because in essence, that's all. And I look at these degrees as very magical. And just like you mentioned up there, K. Edwards, I just think it's not talked about enough in the sense when we talk about the occult and magic, Heka, how it's so deeply embedded in a lot of these African cultures and civilizations we talk about. I just don't think people got a thorough understanding of it. They spook it out like it's this religious devil worship, evil and negative, and that's not what you get when you do the research. So I know it sparked me then, and even more so now in other areas of research and study. And I make this clear, even though I still have my connection to all of those studies. The Moors, ancient Egypt. But I'm not going to look at it in a religious, dogmatic, indoctrinated way. Because remember, Pharaoh represents being ruler and sitting on the throne. I apply that in a magical sense that you are Pharaoh. And in order for you to rule your subjects, you must rule yourself first. And then you can rule everything around you. Apply the magical concept of it on this path, right? Many different breakdowns. But that's why I'm saying these lessons and degrees, in my opinion, I don't care what anybody says, can still be utilized in this day and time. And that's why I wanted to do this video. And as I said before, this video, I'm not doing this. As if you came on late, as I said, I am not a full-fledged member belonging to any group in any state of the nation of gods and earths. I was back in 87 out on Lord's Island, Long Island, New York, for about a year before I got into all the other shit for eons. This was my first introduction, quote unquote, to knowledge. I'd rather say knowledge than consciousness, right? So I wanted to present how would we look at this as an occultist, how we look at the hidden meanings or the esoteric meanings of these teachings and not take them for face value. This is how I apply them in this day and time. They can be utilized. They are very powerful. And a lot of them are mental concepts, in my opinion, and how I can apply them every day in my life. And that would be what we call going from supreme mathematics and taking those supreme mathematics and making them living mathematics. Because as a God, that is your job for self first, and then to teach, instruct, and civilize the uncivilized, right? Those that don't know, right? So that's an excellent point, Stray Panther. What else we got? Sister Sonia, good question. Can you include, or is the lunar cycle included in the teachings? Yes, you do have the representation of the planets, sun, moon, and stars. Now, the lunar or the moon teachings tap more into the female because when you look on a universal flag, now, again, I have a different perspective on this now. This is why they don't refer to the females as gods. They refer to her as two concepts. They are the earth because they are the mothers of civilization. They are the moon because they reflect the light of the sun, right? This is what's in the teachings. And each woman should reflect the light of Allah or God, which would be the man, right? I would take that a step further on this path. That's why I was saying earlier, I liken that. How I see it now on this path, in this day and time, I look at those teachings. You need the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine to walk side by side to embody that pure, primal, chaotic energy of what we call God or the primal essence or energy. So yes, there is the lunar, even when you get into the cycles, study of astrology, you'll see when we get to the actual and the solar facts, it deals, that'll be towards the end. We should get to that next week. So yes, there is a connection with the lunar, the moon cycle, and the solar, but they connect more of the moon cycle to the female. So also that kind of answers. There are plus lessons too, like Stray Panther is saying, which plus lessons, and they're very hard to get nowadays. And I was fortunate to get all the plus lessons back in 89, 90. We were fortunate to get them. You can get them from some gods that still have access to them. Those are probably some of the things you won't be able to find on the internet, or on Facebook or on Scribe or something. You can. It's easy to get the 120 actual facts, solar facts. But a lot of the plus degrees, you would really have to know a god that has them in his possession, and would be willing to share them with you. But yes, and I could pull some of them up. I can't recall right now off the top of my head. I could pull some of them up. There are definitely plus degrees that get in more depth into that for sure. All right. Yeah, Straight Panther 79 to 120 are U and I verse, right? Which is the letter U in the alphabet, right? And it all deals with man, woman, and child, right? Man, woman, and child, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, which is the 26 letter Z. That's what zigzag zig represents. So you can incorporate that. Let's say it was a 26th day of the month. I could take the 26th day, right? And I can break it down into two different letters of the alphabet, or I could just take the 26th and say, if we're like, say January 26th, we're in the day of knowledge, right? And if I want to take the number knowledge, but to right now, correct knowledge, pure knowledge, right, leads to that knowledge, wisdom, understanding. What is knowledge, wisdom, understanding, birth, or born, right? Wisdom. Because when you put that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding into practice, that's when you're applying your wisdom, right? Because what good is if you have knowledge, but you don't have the wisdom to apply that knowledge? Because when the knowledge is applied, it becomes what? Your knowledge becomes born, right? And when you look at born, we're in that year, right? We're in the year of knowledge. The last two numbers on here is knowledge born. So in order to make your knowledge born, you must show forth and prove your wisdom, right? So this is how I'm just giving you terms of how sometimes you might hear things in a cipher, right? And then, somebody woke up, God, you want to add on to the cipher, God? You come in, you better have something to add on to that cipher. Because now back then it was legit. If you didn't have nothing, God will test you. What you got to add on, how you see it as God. And if you just come with some mundane shit, then they might keep plugging at you, to see. But yeah, all that stuff connects, ties in. Yeah, good point by Sonia. New religions are social media and the news. Yeah, both are used to control people. Some people's Bible is YouTube and Facebook now. Let's keep it real. Some people are so, and I'm not saying that, look, I'm on YouTube right now, so I ain't trying to be a hypocrite. But I've always made clear I utilize this platform strictly for the fact of teaching and educating. I'm not interested in all the hype and the drama and the arguing and the debating and the fighting and the gossip. Unfortunately, like Sister Sonia has said, that has become people's new religion. They get on this motherfucker and it's the telltale all. It's like the new word of God to these motherfuckers. Let me get on YouTube and see. Let's be real. Let's keep it real. Some people are addicted to this shit, but not for the right reasons. They love the hype and entertainment. And one thing I found in my 20 plus years teaching and traveling and talking with people, wherever I may be, whether it's East Coast, West Coast, out of the country, I've always found more so people in this country, and it's not a knock, they seem to be more wanting to be entertained and educated. Now, I like to clown around. I like to have fun. I think you should bring the information in a fun, educational, and entertainment only in the sense to keep people engrossed. But when it becomes pure fucking entertainment or it starts to become gimmicky or comical, then I think it becomes a problem. Because then I think we're taking away from the learning and the growing aspect of it. And I think that's an excellent, strong point or statement by Sister Sonia, that these social media platforms and the news and the TV and the media is people's new religion. It's their new God. It's their new Bible. It's their new gospel. It's their new holy word. You understand? We got to be careful of that trap. Remember, they used to call that when it first came on the scene, the internet, the World Wide Web, right? What does a spider do when it casts its web? It tries to trap its prey, right? You see what happens when something gets caught up in the web of a spider, right? Well, they stopped calling it the World Wide Web. It's not really used. That's what www obviously represents when you type in a website or a domain. But think about how we don't use that no more. We used to use it a lot. Oh, I'm getting on the World Wide Web. You remember when AOL first came out? When it was done by phone, there wasn't this Wi-Fi. You had dial-up. Remember that shit? How so? You hear the dial. Then the shit would come on. Ding! You got mail. Everybody remember that shit? When we first got internet with dial-up, man, how slow that shit was. That's the time they was calling it the World Wide Web. But when they got into all this Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi, as I call it, they don't call it that no more. Now it's called Wi-Fi. Internet, right? When you really look at it, if you're going to use the phonetics of the word, internet, in the net, it's just another term for World Wide Web, being trapped. Now, I've always said, from day one, you can go back to many videos I've done in the past, I believe the internet and social media is a two-edged sword. It's a great tool, a great thing, but at the same time, it's a very damaging thing because you have the internet, which can be used for destructive purposes. It's created addiction. Some people are addicted to porn. I read a statistic where over 70% of internet usage is used to go on to pornographic websites. What does that tell you? There's an agenda. Now, look, let me make this clear. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with looking at porn in a, disciplined way. If that's your thing, you get your little, your freaky deaky on, or you get your little fetishes and turn-ons on. That's your business. As long as you're using it, responsibly. So I'm not judging nobody. Let's not front. We've all been exposed to it, or we do utilize it in some shape, form, or fashion. Anybody that says, oh, no, not me, or never did, I'm not saying you might not be consistently now, but I'm bringing that stat up to confirm the statement by Sister Sonia. Some people have an addiction to that. They can't stay off of it. That's all they use it for. So those concepts are still there. So it's a two-edged sword, the social media, internet platform, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, your mother's balls, your sister's ass, whatever Twitter there, whatever the fuck they got. It can be used for something good or something bad. So it's up to, I use the social media platform, like I say, I ain't on Twitter and what's that other shit, Instagram. I don't bother with that. I have my own private Facebook page for family and friends that's private. I used to have an occult Facebook page. I did that shit for a few months. I cut that shit off because that attracted all the nutheads. And again, my goal I'm not in this to argue, fuss, and debate. I did that for many years. I've had plenty of wars doing that over the years in the streets before there was any of this internet. I ain't got time for that shit now. I'm 47 years old. You think I'm going to sit here and waste my time and energy and debate over some nonsensical bullshit? I'm not going to waste my time. Now, if you get stupid, like I told you, I always say this, follow with this. I'm not saying I'm going to turn the other cheek, motherfucker. If you get disrespectful and stupid, the can of whoop ass is coming out. I don't back down from nobody, especially if you're getting ignorant with the information and you're trying to force your shit on somebody, or you all up in your feelings and emotions and you're taking shit personal. We can handle that, okay? And I'm not just talking about physically. We'll go the mental route first, but I want to make that clear. And I tell that to anybody, don't be no punk about your shit, but always try to handle it the right way first. I ain't going to get in no argument over, like you got cats on, I saw all these videos in the last few days, the origins of Christmas and New Year's Eve. Motherfuckers are still talking about the same old nonsensical rhetoric shit. After that, well, okay, how's that? All right, we got that information. And really, the breakdowns I've seen on it were, more conspiracy / agenda type of theory. They don't really understand some of the hidden meanings now. I'm not going to get into that now. But it's just like, why do we keep talking about the same old shit? Because question is, if we keep dealing with the same old shit, addressing the same old problems, that's confirmation that nothing's getting done. When we stop talking about it and moving on to other shit, then that's confirmation there's growth and change. So we got to talk about the same shit year in and year out. That's like church. They go according to a liturgical calendar from January to December. It's the same shit year in and year out. And now we're back to this. We're subconsciously, and we're not aware of it, we're back to this indoctrinated program religious mind state. It's that simple. All right. Straight Panther 79. It's been years since I studied and forgot to pull out my lessons for this. But get them ready for the next show because we're going to finish it up with a bang on the next show. Ismail El Bay, peace, fam. Thanks for teaching this. No problem. And again, you guys suggested this. Actually, Straight Panther 79 was one I've been asking. He had asked a few times. I believe it was also, let me see the names, it'll come back to me. I'm not sure if Mandela Born. I know it was also Straight Panther. Smooth the God, I know had mentioned it. A couple people had emailed me. So you guys suggest this. Look, even though you hear me talk about the cult, you guys know my background. I don't care if it's Moorish doctrine. I could build on that. If you want to talk about the Moors, we could talk about the Moors. If you want to talk about the Nuwapians and Dr. York and Ansarullah, we could talk about that. I mean, I don't want to make a habit of it, but you know that's my areas. That's my background from years ago. And one thing I said, I'll stand on my own. I can talk about those doctrines till tomorrow, till the sun come up, if need be. You want to talk about Masonry? Let's roll. You want to talk about OTO, the Rosicrucian order? If you got topics on that, I'm down. You know, it ain't always got to just be about all the time, you know, skulls and I love that. That's part of black magic. It ain't got to always just be those topics and those topics only. I'm open, but I always will connect it to the occult and the path to self-mastery. Let's get that straight. So if you want to talk Moorish doctrine, I can apply that from an occult perspective, right? So whatever. I think this is a good thing because I know a lot of us came from these different schools of thought. So I think what a great tool this would be, we can now go back and say, wow, I'm on this path to self-mastery. Now, how do I look at it now? Now, what eyes am I looking through and how am I seeing this knowledge now? I think you're going to look at it a totally different way. So, no doubt. You guys have asked for this, so I'm glad you guys brought this up. Sonia says, so becoming adept equals, this is a good point. Yes, this is a way you could perceive it on this path. So becoming an adept equals God/goddess, nation of gods and earth equals becoming God or goddess. Going through the lessons is self-correcting action/life. It's got the whom emoji. Yes, that would be a great way to look at it from an occult perspective. And that's why I said, man, that's one thing why I still will go through my lessons and degrees. To me, they are very path to self-mastery and essence and energy. I don't care what anybody says, period. But that is an excellent analogy. Then Sonia goes on to say, I think that it is talking of self slaying within or obstacles. Always, because purpose of you, I self, Lord and Master. You must go through and master those obstacles to become a master. You don't just become a master overnight. And that's why I did that fucking video a few days ago about people faking the funk. They want all the titles, master this, and I'm a guru this, a master teacher this, a master that, master of your ass, master of your nutsack, whatever the fuck. They got all these titles and accolades. They want to put on the costume and self-grab the title, but they ain't put the work in. Fuck that. And that's why I said we got to start calling out these people that are faking the funk. Start putting them on the spot. Okay, what's your name? Master teacher. What the fuck are you a master teacher? You know what the problem is in this world? We got a lot of people that are jacks of all trades, but masters of shit. Masters of nothing. These are your motherfuckers that are in everything saying they're a master of that. I'm a master of masonry. I'm a master of this. I went through this. I went through those things, and I'm sure there's plenty of other people that did, but that's why I went through that video and showed the credentials. Not because it makes you better than anybody, to show that there's no deception there. You take it for what it is. I couldn't give a fuck what you take it for. It's not. That's irrelevant to me. But what I am saying is we got a jack of all trades, master of nothing. Then you got the motherfuckers that are up in their personal emotions. They mad when they hear certain things because it's not in accordance with their personal ideology. Fuck you and your personal ideology. I don't care what, if you don't like something, just like if I hear somebody say something I don't like, I don't get caught up in my feelings about it. I just disregard it and move on. I'll be damned if I stay in somebody's class or lecture. Well, I never understood over the years why people came to classes, because it happens periodically. I've had some of the most craziest motherfuckers come to live classes over the years, especially back then, and then got their ass handed to them. I literally, I'll get into that another time. But it goes to show you, I never understood somebody coming to a class. I mean, what'd you get up to? I'm headed to that class. I'm all set, ready to go there and prove them wrong and attack them. You know how much of a sick fucking individual you must be to do some shit like that? Because I tell you, 100% of the time, you'll get your ass handed to you. It's different if you come in there to learn and you have a difference of opinion and you want to express it respectfully. Cool, power to you. I've had many respectful and professional and mad cool people over the years come to class and be in complete disagreement with what I taught. But we were both mature adults and we agreed to disagree. But when you want to come get ignorant, I'm gonna say it the hood way, ignorant, not ignorant, ignorant. When you want to come get ignorant, I guarantee you all the time you're gonna get your ass handed to you. And I'm not interested in what you like or you don't like. That's some personal shit. I don't care if you don't like if you can like and love what I'm saying. I don't care if you like or hate the way I look because it doesn't fit your own personal, what in your mind fits your criteria. That's some personal shit. Get over it. If you don't like the way I fucking look and what I'm talking about, change the channel. It's that simple. Find a channel that you like, what they're saying and what people look like. But if you think you're going to come in here and waste your time and energy with that bullshit, that's why we got the wrench, right? Click, gone. Now, years ago, it'd be a different story because years ago, I'd be looking for war, fighting, conflict. Because when you're young and you got that raw aggression running through you, I'm not going to lie, in my 20s, early 30s, I'd be looking for that shit. I'd literally go walking around the city looking for debates. I go look for the Mormons on their bicycle. I couldn't wait to find a group of Jehovah's Witnesses walking around. Couldn't wait till Christians came to my table when I was peddling back in the day, so I can go in on them. But as I get older, I said, you know what does that really accomplish? So now a real warrior or a wise man or woman says, the only time I'm going to defend myself and attack when need be. So if you want to get ignorant, we can get ignorant. You don't want to go there with me. I ain't talking shit. I ain't trying to intimidate nobody. Don't let the skin tone fool you. Don't let my appearance fool you. If you want to get your ass handed to you, I won't even talk about it. We can go there and let's see what happens. I'll leave it at that. But people got to get out of their personal fucking emotions and feeling, their likes and dislikes. What this person said, what they look, that's personal, motherfucker. Get over it. There's a lot of things I hear. You hear me say all the time, Bobby Hammett or whoever, or that. There's a lot of things I love that he teaches, but there's a lot of things I will 100% say I don't agree with. But I ain't going to get on a video, man, fuck that motherfucker. Fuck him, and I don't give a fuck if he's sick. That's some ignorant ass shit. That's, to me, it's just straight ignorant, but you get the point. I think you guys get the point. All right, so Straight Panther 79, dealing with, hold on, skip-a-rooney. Okay, dealing with and mastering the ego or humanity. Another good way to look at the teachings, correct. Aswadim Tremere, what is your opinion on the Eye of the Sahara and the supposed connection to Atlantis? I just saw the Aquaman movie and saw a lot of connections regarding the first civilization or something thereof. Yes, not to get sidetracked, I'll address that briefly. I don't know if you saw my video on Aquaman and the Leviathan energy. They do bring that. What they're trying to show in the movie, and this is what you might see in some kind of as if it's a porthole or a gateway to this Atlantis. How much truth or evidence is to it? There's a lot of speculation and theory. Is the concept of a reality? There is evidence and information to support it. Now, Atlantis is a very debatable theory. They have proven at once, remember when the Earth shifted on its axis, there has been historical, factual data to support that obviously when it shifted on its axis, certain land masses went beneath, vice versa, some came to the surface. So when you hear that term Atlantis rising again, and the movie was trying to show that with them coming to the surface and overtaking the surface dwellers, and I didn't address the Eye of the Sahara thing in the video, but that's a good point that you bring up. What I saw as how they depicted it in the movie, the Eye of the Sahara, was the portway or the gateway or the opening, quote unquote, to that connection. Now, you could probably get many different meanings, esoterical breakdowns on that. The validity and the factualness of it, I think that's personal. You're going to have to take it, do your research and perceive it the way somebody else might look at that and have a whole other perception of it. Because, look, you can go back into the Bible to what does it mean when it says, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to make it into heaven. There's literally a place in, I forgot where it's at, which is a small opening in a wall that quote is referring to. A lot of people don't know that. So again, we have to do our due diligence and research there. To me, there's exoteric and esoterical meanings to these things.
But specifically to that eye of the Sahara, without really getting, I don't want to go too off topic with that. I don't know if you watched the whole video that I did last week. It is quite long. It's about 3.5 hours. It might elude you. I do get into in depth the Atlantis and how that connected to the Aquaman energy, connects to the Leviathan energy. Because the thing I wanted to point out to people, when you see him riding, when he comes out of the water in that last scene at the end fighting, you see it on the commercial. They show it briefly. He is now possessed the power of the trident. He's come to the realization that he is a god, that he understands his mortal humanity was holding him back from recognizing that. And I do see how they tied it into the legend of King Arthur. And they say the legend of King Arthur goes back to Atlantis. That really can't be factually proven. I recommend people to go back and watch that King Arthur movie. Similar, like King Arthur couldn't possess the sword until he realized his divinity, Aquaman couldn't possess the trident. But the symbolicism of him riding the sea dragon Leviathan in the very last scene, he's standing on top holding the trident, shows that he had now become master over that chaotic energy, Leviathan. I gave the 6 quotes in the Bible where it talks about Leviathan. It refers to it in the commentary as not a literal dragon or beast of the sea. It's a symbolic representation of the primal chaotic energy. The Bible tells you that shit. So in the video, I tried to show people the origins and connection from a religious perspective to remove that whole devil worship thing, which that's not what Leviathan energy represents in a religious context. And I showed you how it connects to us, how we struggle every day, like Aquaman and King Arthur movie showed, where we struggle, we get caught up more in our mortality and don't understand the power that we have as gods or goddesses. Now, maybe you bring this up because it's leading me now back to the lessons. Is that not what the degrees are trying to do? They're trying to show you the power of God that resides within you. So that's how I would take it. But again, I'd go watch that video. Hopefully that pushes you in the right direction. Let's see, am I saying right? I'm sorry, my eyes. Madman Moby. I talked, and again, I don't know if you were on, I think I went over. In Musa, how described in the degrees can't really be proven factual. I don't know if you were on, I think you were probably on when I was giving the whole breakdown of not being a factual character in the Bible. You can't really prove that Musa was a half original. The story of the Israelites is not a factual account. You can't find on any Egyptian records that there were any people for 430 years in bondage in ancient Egypt. And as we know, the ancient Egyptians kept the most accurate records than any other civilization on the planet. You would think on some historical record, there was a record. And I know the Hebrew Israelites have tried to refute this, but they can't. They came up with some whack shit I saw years ago. You cannot show me on any Egyptian record of any people called Israelites being in bondage in Egypt for 430 years. I challenge anybody to bring it forth. Show me. Give me some historical data. This is where I think you apply the concept of pseudoism, right? So having said that, you will find on record in Egypt a group of people called the Hyksos, Hekakasut, shepherd kings, who were Indo-Aryans that came into ancient Egypt, were considered invaders. It's recorded on the records. Thutmose the first, where they get the name Musa, Moshe, Moses being Greek, Musa being the Hebrew, Moshe being the Arabic, meaning he who was drawn out of water. That's what the story records, right? Thutmose the first of ancient Egypt was the one that drove these Hyksos out of Egypt. Sound familiar? The story of Moses, the parting of the Red Sea. They took the stories and they twisted it. I'm saying all this in relation to the Musa question to show you it's not a factual historical account. But I'm going to follow it up what I said earlier. I don't think we should get caught up. It's that I was trying to focus on the occult and esoterical, and the essence of these teachings to me is much more important. But when we're going to debate the literalness of this Musa character, it's not a fact. All right? Because when you go back on those ancient Egyptian records, it's an Egyptian story you're reading in the Bible. Because as we know, the Bible stole all its stories from cultures that predated it. When you're reading the first chapters of Genesis, the first 7, that's the Babylonian story of creation. Where did the Israelites get that? The historical Israelites, when they came back in from Babylon into Jerusalem, as recorded in the book of Ezra, when they rebuilt Solomon's temple, that's when they started to put the Torah together, or what we know as the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. That's where your creation story was first compiled and put in the Torah. That's where they got the 6-pointed star from, off those walls in the temples of Babylon. The 6-pointed star ain't got shit to do with Judaism. Go back and watch a video I just did the other day on the as above, so below, the 8-pointed star of chaos. It's an ancient alchemical black magical symbol that actually has its roots also in ancient Samaria as well as ancient Egypt, right? The science behind that shit. So we got to first establish, when we look at this character, Musa, it's not a factual character. Now, there might be others beg to differ and try to refute and debate that. I don't really care. I'm not really interested. But if you want the history on it, I'll give it to you. I'm looking at what Musa in that story and those degrees represents, right? He came to teach, bring some civilization to those that were practicing, living, and teaching trick knowledge. The half original thing, that don't even line up with biblical theology, even if you thought Musa was an actual character. Because when you go back into the Bible, how are you really going to prove that from, I'm talking about now from biblical history, it doesn't match up. But again, I'd take it even a step further and go back to ancient Egypt and look at the symbolicism. Thutmose and the story of the Hyksos can be used. That's you within yourself. Again, using the system that many people commented prior, correcting those things about yourself that are all fucked up. You know, I'd look at it as the deconstruction, reconstruction process on the path to self-mastery. I look at the story of Musa and the degrees of being a tool to bring that out, or being a tool, or one of the many facets that was used to bring that out. That's it. That's my build on it, though. You don't have to see it that way. That's not the tell all. That's my build. And that's true. Straight Panther, and I was talking about that earlier. I was told all the gods on earth were told by them not to take the lessons, and I was always told never to take them on face value. You'd be doing yourself a disservice. Because as I said earlier, that would be like looking at the Bible and taking it literal on face value, when we know there's a lot of symbolicisms in the Bible. And in my opinion, now looking at the degrees, you can't take everything literal in there. That's just my take on it. Okay, on the relationship of supreme mathematics to the Kabbalah or the tree of life. Well, without getting too much into it, for time constraints, when you look at Kepta or Ether, when you look at what the tree of life represents, right? And when you look at the top of that tree, in my opinion, what that represents is becoming in that state or supreme state of being God. Now, you could correlate the Kabbalah or the tree of life and the different facets of it, of different stages of your journey on this path, whether you want to correlate that to the teachings or whether you want to correlate that to self, but I could take a combination of both. So Kabbalah mysticism in general, even in the Rosicrucian order, is used. We have actually Kabbalah classes in the Rosicrucian order. And they have teachers that just teach the Kabbalah. So shit, that's even a class we can do. How can we use, Kabbalah is used in a lot of occult circles on many different levels. So most definitely you can apply the Kabbalah on many different levels. But to supreme mathematics, I would apply it in the sense what each stage on that tree of life represents. And from a degree perspective, you can look in the degrees, because when the degrees are separated in that 1 to 10 student enrollment, you can apply that to the lower levels, like more of the materialistic aspect. But as you go further to the degrees, look at it symbolically as going or climbing or moving through that tree of life to get to what that state of supreme godhood represents. I'm saying that's how I would look at it if I'm going to correlate it to supreme mathematics. And that's what makes these teachings different than any of the other stuff that's out there in a lot of these quote unquote conscious circles. But that would just be a quick correlation. All right. That might be an idea for a good class, though. Good point. Yeah, that's right. Uptown 157. Yeah. If you know Clarence 13X, if you know the Mecca of the nation of gods and earths is the 8th Avenue and 125th Street in Harlem, Law School of Mathematics. Now, where I had my first exposure because of where I grew up on the borderline of Springfield Gardens, Rosedale, Limerick, Valley Stream, the 5 towns, I was closer to Medina, which is in Brooklyn, which right off the Belt Parkway. I mean, I was a hop, skip, and jump from there. And then later had obviously my exposure. And I remember years ago, even when I was Ansarul Law, I used to have a lot of the guys, because I used to pedal and set up my table back in them days on Delancey and Essex Street on the Lower East Side. Sometimes you would catch me out on Fordham Road in the Bronx. I'd be on Parsons and 179th, sometimes downstairs in the train station. That was another spot. I'd be on Fordham Road in the Bronx, right where the Woolworth used to be, some people remember that back in the day. On Delancey and Essex, I was right in front of the old Gem discount store. I had a good relationship with the Dominican brothers that owned that store. I used to be able to keep my table and my products in their basement when I wasn't set up, so I didn't have to get on a train and travel with all that shit. I was out there for years ago. People, when I tell you I was on the streets from the late 80s, probably to the late 90s. Well, mid to late 80s, and I'd probably say late 90s going into early 2000s is when I pretty much stopped all that being out on the streets every day, and then realized society was changing, times was changing. I needed to go a whole different route because it's good to hustle, but as I said before, I talked about that in one video. A lot of brothers are still doing the same old shit from back in them days. It's good for a side hustle, but don't confuse a hustle with a legitimate business, making real money. I don't care if you make shit. During them days, shit, we were making 100, 2, 3. Sometimes on a Friday or the beginning of the month, when people got their checks and shit, you might make $300, $400, $500 on a Friday in the beginning of the month. But it was appropriate for them times. You know, it's okay for a side hustle. I wouldn't do that anymore for my main livelihood. And I'm not knocking anybody that does. I still do little hustles on the side. I'll set up at events, certain spots. That's just to make a little extra dough or to reach the people and the masses. But that's the school I came up with. Before there was this internet, YouTube, and all this shit, it was about being on the streets, talking with the people. And I still love that mentality. For those that come, here and come to some of the classes that I do down there, I still use that methodology of teaching. What we're doing now, this is how I like to teach, just dialogue and flow and freestyle and just kicking it. Because I think it's more natural. I think it communicates better to people. People are more engaged. And that's the way we were taught in them days. Bring it to the people. Another downside to when we were talking about social media platforms, et cetera, earlier, the problem that has done, we've all become comfortable sitting behind a keyboard and a computer because we're too fucking lazy now to take it to the streets. And then you got a lot of these internet gangsters that sit behind screen names and keyboards and don't even tell you who the fuck they are, but they want to talk a bunch of smack and shit. Well, I don't get nobody know. If you don't want to identify your real name, okay, who the fuck you really are and show your face, not Seti Ankh Ra, Hotep, Shango, Obatala III. You want to hide behind a fucking avatar and a screen name. I tell you my real name, Mike. You see my real name on the documents, first and last name I show. I'm not trying to hide who the fuck I am. Because if you're trying to do that, you got an agenda. I'm not going to give you all the private details of my life because it's none of your fucking business. But some niggas won't even tell you their real name because in fear you might do a background on them and something might come up. Maybe they ain't got the credentials they say they got. Maybe they ain't who they say they are. I'm just saying. But that's why I don't even take anything for, I don't even pay nobody no mind that wants to hide behind a motherfucking keyboard and talk shit. When you'll see me right here on camera, you see me where the fuck I'm at. I tell you where I'm at. I let people come meet with me in person. That's not somebody that got a fucking agenda. But I'll keep that fine line. That's just common fucking sense. All right, what else we got? Yep. 1, 2, 3. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Okay, what else we got here? I'm going to wrap this up soon. Hopefully I can get through anything. Lady Shalice Simmons says, I believe that some of us end up going through a lot of these systems to gather spiritual nuggets. That's a good point. That build us up personally so we're able to eventually evolve to our own Godhead shit. And I agree. And that's how I always tell people. One thing, like when I'm working with clients or doing consultations or just building with people, one thing I always stop people when they say, oh man, I regret that I ever was a Moor, or you shouldn't, because of what Sister Shalice just said. You shouldn't. Look at it as it was a necessary stepping stone or path, or as the metaphor she used, look at it as a spiritual nugget you got that was part of your growth, that it was able to get you to where you're at now. Because I look at it now, everything you did prior to becoming on this path was a step that was necessary to get you here right now. Look at it as an experience. And also look at it, you have the experience now to go back when you run across these people. You could build with them now. So I tell people, don't regret what you used to be. Don't say, oh, because if we all knew what we knew now, we would have saved ourselves a lot of headaches and time. But then look at the flip side of it. It was pertinent for your growth. So that's how I see it. I don't regret anything I went through. Anything I went through by my choice. I don't blame anybody for my failures. I don't blame anybody for making any mistakes in my life. I take full credit and responsibility. Nobody ever forced me to be a part of any of those groups or organizations back in the day. I made the conscious decision myself. Part of it, I was misguided and blinded at the time, but nobody put a gun to my head and forced me to be any of those things. I made that choice. But the same way I take the responsibility and credit for where I'm at now today. What you hear in front of you now talking, this is self-taught. Nobody taught me. When I say self-taught, I learned to branch out on my own. I'm not saying I didn't get any help along the way from elders, teachers, and loved ones and family. Because like I said before, when you had the roof over your head growing up, your family, your mother and father helped you to some degree. So I'm not saying that. But I'm saying at this point now, I also take the responsibility and credit for my own successes. What you see in front of you, I ain't got no damn college degree. I ain't never set foot in a college. I have a high school motherfucking diploma. Matter of fact, I'm the only one of a family of 4, 3 sisters and myself. I'm the only one in my family that has a high school diploma. The only one in my immediate family, my mother and myself. My 3 sisters were high school dropouts and completely successful to this day. One of them is making 3-figure and has a 10th grade education. All right. My father didn't even have past the 9th grade education. He was forced to drop out of high school to help with the bills. That's how it was when you came from another country back in them times. Most of them, all 3 of his brothers didn't even finish high school. One went into the military. Okay. So I'm telling you, when you hear me building on teaching and all this stuff, this is stuff from reading and studying on my own after leaving all that shit. All right. The furthest I went in the system of education is a high school diploma. I ain't never set foot in a college. I don't even know what it's like to go to college. All right. So I just want to make that clear. So I don't want you to think that I have any systematic education, because I don't. And like I said, the only one in my immediate family that did was myself and my mother. My mother was a genius. She graduated high school in 2 years. That's where I get the knowledge, wisdom of my nature. Definitely comes from my mother. My mother finished high school in 2 years. And you're going to laugh. She came close to becoming, before she met my father, she graduated from St. Michael's High School in Brooklyn, and she was about to go into the convent and become a nun and changed her mind at the last minute. I know that's some funny ass shit. But went to high school for 2 years and didn't go to college because of certain situations and circumstances. I ain't going to get into all that. But the wisdom and the why, my mother was a genius. One of the smartest people you ever meet. Not that my father wasn't, but I get the intellect part of my nature from my mother. And I grew up around women. I'm raised by women. I got no brothers. I had 2 cousins that used to beat my ass all the time. They were like my brothers. That was my mother's sister's kids. But I grew around. And one thing is a good and bad thing. I always joke and tell I can't cook nothing. I mean, basic shit I could cook. That's one thing that's bad about me. I got no cooking skills because I always had women cooking for me growing up. If it wasn't my sisters, it was my mother, and then it was the women in my life. So I've always had somebody in my life to cook. Now I'm not talking about I can make basic shit. Everybody can make regular chicken and heat up pasta and fucking cereal and toast and, but I can't cook worth dick. I ain't going front. I can make basic shit. But I'm saying I've always been around that feminine energy that's catered to me. And I get that from my mother. I know that for a fact, hands down. All right, what else we got? I think I'm just about at the end. Cool. The Star of Ishtar, in relation when I was talking about the six-point star that Doom was talking about, there is a connection to that. Yes, or 140 Rockaway, sure. Yeah, so Rockaway Avenue, that whole area over there. My stomping grounds, all right, where I used to get on the belt, East New York, Fulton, Atlantic, Bushwick, Springfield Gardens, Farmers in 167. After I graduated high school, I went and got because I worked in the city, I got my apartment on Farmers in 167. In Queens, Springfield Gardens. Matter of fact, the bodega right there on 167, it was a bodega that LL visited frequently. If you go in there today, there's pictures today. Every time I go home today, you'll go in there and you'll see pictures of LL Cool J from the time he was coming in there, when the radio album first came out in 85, when he was a teenager, till present day. Because every time he goes back, he goes in, and the dude, owned by the same Dominican family, they take pictures every time he goes in there. So that whole area, St. Albans, Springfield Gardens, which is really right outside of Jamaica, Southeast Jamaica, Queens. That's pretty much, after I got out of high school, that was pretty much the area I lived for the rest of the time before I came here. But grew up, I was born in Hempstead Hospital in Hempstead, New York, which is not even there no more. That's out in Long Island, Nassau County. Went to high school, Malvern High School, which is in the 5 towns, that whole Malvern, Hempstead, Freeport, Roosevelt. My big claim to fame back then was, living and growing up around Public Enemy, Terminator X. Actually, there was a dairy barn there. We used to see Flav all the time at. A whole nother story, character. But that's where I grew up all through my high school years. Like I said, what they call the 5 towns: Hempstead, Freeport, Lakeview, Lynbrook, Malvern, Hempstead, all those areas. That's the area I went to high school. And that's where I first encountered the teachings or the degrees of the 5%. By a brother I met in the bus terminal out there, Law Supreme Mathematics. I have no idea if the brother's still around or if he's still alive, because he was kind of an older brother at that time. But yeah, that's where I grew up through my high school years. And then when I graduated, that's when I moved more closer to the city, because I was in the city all the time, either pedaling or working. It was more convenient for me. So I went and got me a place out there in Springfield Gardens, right off of Farmers, 167. Roxdale Village, if you know what that is. I was like 3 blocks. 167 or Farmers and 167. Literally, if you come out and look, you could actually see Roxdale Village. In fact, it was that close. But that's kind of the area. I know some of y'all, if you're from that area, you know the area well. So shout out to the people of Queens and Nassau. That's my area. That's where I grew up. All right. So having said that, and in closing, real quick, before everybody goes, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, I want to make this clear, like I did in the beginning of the video. And I hope you've seen that through the video. I did this video. I have the utmost respect for the 5% nation of gods and earths, being connected with it, being my original introduction to spirituality, this video or consciousness or knowledge. Again, I did this video. Again, the purpose of doing it was so people could see the occult or hidden meaning of these teachings from this perspective. And I know a lot of mainstream 5% nation of gods and earth may not agree with it. Again, it was not done for the intention in any shape, form, or fashion to criticize in a negative manner the teachings. And I think I showed that in the video. I have the utmost respect for the teachings, the nation, and most importantly, Father Allah. And I will do a second part with this to wrap it up. I want to make that clear. We will finish with the 1 to 40 next week, the actual and the solar facts, and we will go over the universal flag. That will be the next video. We'll finish up with that, and that'll pretty much wrap up the gist. Maybe down the road we'll revisit and go through some plus lessons or plus degrees. That's a good point. I know somebody brought that up. But again, this is why I did this video, and I will always, regardless of whether some may agree with how I perceive the degrees or not as being factual, I really don't care. Oh shit, Lady Steve, Malvern, really? Did you grow up in Lakeworth? I don't know if you were from Lakeworth. I'm sorry, Lakeview, my bad. Thinking of Florida. I don't know if that where you grew up in Lakeview. I don't know if you grew up in Rockville Center or one of those surrounding areas, or you were from Malvern. Not sure, but that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. My sister still lives in West Hempstead. She got my second oldest sister has a house in West Hempstead. So every time I actually go visit, that's where I stay. I'm in Hempstead all the time. And it's, like I said, it's a great location because you can get to any part of any of the boroughs, and you can get anywhere in the city. But that's pretty cool. But again, that's the reason why I did the video. So again, I want to give a shout out and respect to all the gods and the goddesses. And again, I know they don't call them goddesses, gods and the earths. And this was done with the utmost respect. And the second part will be done also with the utmost in respect, because I will always, in some shape, form, or fashion, consider myself a part of these teachings and degrees on some level, regardless. And I've always been open about that over the years in my teachings. I've always been clear on my connection with this, all right? Yeah, so if you do have your degrees and lessons for the next video, bring them out. I know we all don't remember them all word verbatim anymore. I don't. I could build on any of them, though. I may not know them all word for word, and I don't claim to. I want to make that clear. But I can go through any of them shits. I know the gist of them, but one thing I'll never forget is my mathematics and my alphabet. That I know by heart. I can run that shit down with no problem. And I think that you should. If you don't know that shit, then... Now remember Justice, old man Justice. If you know the history of the first 9 born from father-in-law, I might build a little bit on that. Maybe I think I might do a video just on the history of father-in-law. Do that separate. I would like to do that because for the ultimate respect and honor I have for a father-in-law as an ancestor now on the ancestral realm. Lakeview, all right, shit, I might know some of your peoples. I don't know who your family are, who your circles. I don't know how old you are. I don't know who some of your friends are, but I can spool off some names because I got a lot of people, friends that I went to school with that live in Lakeview that I still am in contact with today. That's pretty fucking cool. All right. I might even know some of your people, your family. Even if you're younger, I might know some of the older people. You might spit some names at me. But we're gonna have to rap about that. Definitely gonna have to rap about that. That's pretty cool. But maybe I'll do a separate video on father-in-law. But old man Justice, when you get into he was one of the original of the first 9 born that father-in-law took under his wing. Remember, old man Justice, when you read the history of him, he didn't know any of the lessons. But he didn't know them all word for, not that he didn't know, let me correct that statement. He didn't know them all by heart. He was clear on that. But as it is said, he was able to build on any of them. And it's funny because the name I took at that time when I first came to it was Born Justice and Law, right? That was the name I used when I was a 5%er, Born Justice and Law. Now, I didn't really look at it back then, correlating it to Old Man Justice, but Old Man Justice was known for that. And one thing he would say is, as long as you know your mathematics and your alphabet, the other stuff will come, because he was clear. He always professed he didn't know all his degrees word for word by heart. I liken myself in that category. And this day I'd be like Old Man Justice. I don't know them all word verbatim. Now there's some brothers, they spit that shit military like, and they sharp on their shit. But as long as you can hold your own in a cipher, you know your mathematics, you know your alphabet, your 12 jewels of Islam, you can build on the degrees and build in the ciphers, you know, that's what it's about. So I think I might do that, exclusively a video on the history of father-in-law. I'm definitely going to put that on the agenda. I don't know when. I don't want to drown too much out with it. Let's finish this first. So Straight Panther, anybody else that has their degrees or lessons, have them ready next time so we can study them and go through them, kind of like I did tonight. You know, I have to kind of look at some of them to get full, because I'm not going to sit here in front like now, years later, I remember them all by heart. I don't. But once I look at it, spark. So we'll do that. But anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. For any information you need on the things I mentioned in the beginning of the video, online classes, spiritual consultations or readings, information on the upcoming event on Friday, January 25th at 8 p.m., feel free to email me. The email's in the description box of all my videos, khnum19@gmail.com, khnum19@gmail.com. And we will finish this up in the next video, people. Enjoy the rest of your New Year's Day. Peace, love, hair grease, and happiness, blessings, kumbaya, and all that good shit to everybody, all right? Peace.